Meeting's called to order at 7:03 p.m. Let me just catch up here for a second. Let's see, I think we left off at Jesse. Let me just start this again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Suzanne, can you please take roll call?
Trustee Bernal?
Here.
Trustee Doggett?
Here.
Trustee Levin?
Here.
Trustee Shiakari?
Here.
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Thank you.
The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without a charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television, PCT, records and broadcasts the meetings. The report out on closed sessions. The board met in closed session regarding 4A conference with labor negotiators, Heather and the superintendent, employee or organization, CSEA, LSEA, LSMA, and public employee performance evaluation, the superintendent. No action was taken. And approval of the minutes for October 30th. It is recommended that the board approve the minutes of the October 30th, 2019 regular meeting. Are there any questions regarding the minutes from October 30th? No? Do I have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve?
I'll second. And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
And then approval of the minutes of November 13th. It is recommended that the board approve the minutes from November 13th. And are there any questions regarding the minutes of November 13th?
So just as a point of clarification, on the agenda, there was a mistake where it said it's recommended that the board approve the minutes of the October 30th. And so with an amendment, we can approve it should read November 13th, 2019.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
And approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the items listed on the agenda or consent agenda?
Amendment as stands, or the agenda as stands?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said the agenda as stands.
Okay. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
Motion approved.
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Communications. Speakers wishing to address the board on items on the agenda or not on the agenda may complete speaker cards and submit them to any member at the staff table. If you are addressing the board on a non-agenda item, please be aware that the provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting or discussing such matters at this meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic. LSEA?
Sorry again. First, we'd like to thank all the LSEA members, CSEA members, and all the parents who are here tonight. We really appreciate it. And all I need to say is that we're still interested in communicating with you. I know my name is hard to spell. You can reach out to me, lseapresident@gmail.com. Feel free to contact us and set up a meeting. We are still interested in talking and communicating with you. That's all. Thank you.
CSEA?
I didn't prepare anything to speak tonight, but when I look around and see all these people who are concerned with how things are going in our school district, you see the impact here, but you feel the impact out in the field where the people are doing the work. You know, we're stressed out. There's things that are not being handled correctly. We've got contract violations going on. I don't know what's going to straighten it up, but it's hard to work with people who are stressed out. You know, we're there for the kids, but I don't think you folks realize how much we do out there. It's time that maybe you drop in during the school day, see what's really happening out there. Teachers are stressed, they're overworked, IEPs, phone calls, everything coming down on them. We try to help the teachers deal with that. You need to help the teachers deal. You need to help the people who are trying to aid them. It's your job. Thank you.
And then people wishing to address the board. First, we have Darcy Fields.
I've already spoken once a couple months ago. I'm kind of a dinosaur in the district, so I know what has gone on in the past. But I just want to say I am sick and tired of hearing about there's no money. I read the stuff put out about the LSEA negotiations. I was very excited when Gavin Newsom said he was going to give money to, I guess, handle the, what do I want to say? Oh, not benefits. Well, yeah, benefits. So money would be released to the teachers, but I've yet to hear anything other than if there's no money. I'm asking you as the board, you govern this school district, not the DO. Things have got to change. Checks are being held up, sitting on desk. That's not right. Everybody lives paycheck to paycheck. We haven't had a decent raise in years. 2% for me, I mean, it was good. It was $40, but then gas almost went up to $4.50. So we need a decent raise. Most of us live here in Pacifica. We supported the bonds. We supported the partial tax. When are you guys going to support us? Thank you.
And Elizabeth Russell.
Okay, so we're going to talk about numbers. Here is the compromise that I received for my son's services at $55 an hour. He receives 135 minutes a week for special education. That's 2,295 minutes that he has already missed. Now let's talk about the numbers for the school. According to CalPAD, there are 44 students special education in Cabrillo alone. That's over 100,000 minutes that these kids have already missed. 1,683 hours at $55 an hour. That's $92,000 just for August to December. Where's the money that you guys should be putting out for these RSP teachers? This makes no sense when I look at these numbers. Okay, I'm spending the time that we used to spend after dinner playing cards, playing sorry, doing the things that families should be doing with tears and correcting. And you know what? Thank you for these teachers that are coming in early for my son so he could take partial tests just to make it through the school week. This is absurd. These numbers, I look at this and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. How can you spend $55 an hour for an outside tutor and not support a teacher that could be on site? What is wrong? I do not understand this. And an email from this board saying, okay, we would like to meet again with the families in December and talk about talk about the things that you talked about at our October meeting. I don't get that. I get a morning with Maria, okay, a coffee at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning, which most people work. Not where in this letter they said, oh, I take your advice seriously, that maybe we should make it later in the evening so more working parents could be there to support their kids. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. This is paper. This is your figures. You should be able to do this. Not just a mom at home trying to get her son through school. And that's what I have to say.
Jane Solano.
Hi. I'm Jane Solano. I'm a sixth grade language arts and social studies teacher at IBL. I'm also the humanities lead for our site. I'm here to help give you a real picture of what's happening on the teaching front related to the RSP crisis. A little background in case you don't know, IBL set up classes this year to provide our RSP students with the least restrictive environment, most enriching environment possible. That, our principal believed, was the co-teaching model. This is where most of the students with IEPs are placed in a class with gen ed students and are serviced with two teachers working together, one a specialist. Since we have no RSP teachers on our campus now and only one paraeducator to split between language arts and math, things are not going well, to say the least. Our SDC and milieu teachers had to give up their prep time to teach the RSP study skills classes. That solution, however, was unsustainable, and so now those kids are being redistributed into the gen ed classrooms without support. This is how that looks for one of our ELA teachers. Tiffany Woods is a 7th grade language arts teacher at IBL. Because of this redistribution of RSP students I mentioned, she just received 7 students with IEPs in her already challenging classrooms. One of the students landed in her first period class, wherein she already has 5 English learners and a number of low-skill students who should have been placed in her co-taught class. She's trying to get a volunteer from Pacifica School Volunteers to help, but it's now week 15 and no volunteer has stepped forward. In this class, she has no help at all. In her 3rd period class, she received another 2 newly exited RSP students into this very low-skill co-taught class. This same period, the quote-unquote co-taught class, which she's teaching by herself, has only Miss Woods and a part-time para sub because her previous paraprofessional was moved into another classroom due to the disbanding of the math RSP program. Tiffany describes this class as about half special needs. Best practices, I was told when we started this model, recommends no more than 30% of a class with a specialist co-teacher be RSP students. Hers is more like 50%, and her help is not a credentialed specialist but a part-time parent volunteer. To understand the problem that this particular 7th grade class is experiencing is to start with the understanding that Tiffany Woods, like so many of these dedicated professionals devoted to the school district, loves her job. She loves her 142 students. She loves her school's staff. Recently, however, she's been feeling the weight of this RSP crisis fall squarely on her shoulders, and she finally had to ask the question that's been nagging her and the rest of the PSD staff for what cost does one have to pay for her job? I just have a couple of other facts that I'd like to make sure you guys know about. Suddenly, all of the cracks that have been showing for years but could be overlooked. Can I have 1 more minute?
How many people do we have to speak?
We have,
Okay. One thing of note to comparison as far as our numbers go is that I want to make you aware, San Mateo Union High School District in comparison is paying $72,500 for a step 1 30-unit credentialed teacher. Our district's first level salary is $49,000. This is 36% of the area median income for our San Mateo district. $136,800 is median income, and $49,000 at entry level is quite low. You'd have to work 16 years at level 1 to get to the entry level position of the high school.
and Ms. Solano, thank you.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
we really want to try to keep to the 3 minutes. So that's going to be 24 more minutes. So we'll give a 30-second, what do you want to call it? 30-second reminder that your time is almost up. So our next person is Tara Knotts. Tara Knotts?
Hi. My name is Tara Knotts. I'm the parent of 3 kids. We've been at Ocean Shore for 7 years, and I'm always stunned when is the quality of the teachers that we've had there. They're easily teachers that could go to $40K a year private schools and teach. These are the teachers that go and get the coveted living history field trips for their kids. They work till 10 p.m. at night. They are absolutely high quality teachers, and when I looked at the salary scales for our district compared to other districts, I was crushed to find out that these awesome teachers are not getting so awesome of salaries. In addition, I have 2 kids that have IEPs, and this past year has been exceedingly difficult for both of my kids. And my good news is the teachers here, the RSP at Ocean Shore, all the special ed staff within the district have been amazing and really gone to bat for us. And they have literally helped get my child home safely. I'm not joking. They have had their radar up for signs of crisis, and I really appreciate it. And I know, talking to other parents in other districts with kids like mine, they don't have the same feeling. They don't have a feeling that the IEP team is on their kid's side. I know that it is rare, and we can't lose that rareness. We can't afford to lose our good help, and we can't afford to not hire quality help. So that money that we say we don't have, I say we have to find it, because we have to keeping our good help and bringing in quality help. So I just, in general, support efforts to bring the salaries at least to an even playing field with the rest of the county.
Kiyomi Arai? Kiyomi?
Hi, my name is Kiyomi Arai. I'm a mother, active school volunteer, and a 3rd grade teacher at Cabrillo. In my class of 24, I have 4 students with IEPs and 1 student in the beginning stages of identification. This is about the average I've had over the past 5 years, give or take students with or without a 504 plan. This has been an increase since I started working for the district 11 years ago. During the 5 or so years, I have noticed a change in work expectations for teachers. We attend more IEP, SST, or 504 meetings, not including our standard parent-teacher conferences and informal meetings and various email communications. I haven't even talked about teaching curriculum yet. We must give students with special needs access to the current grade curriculum while accommodating their needs, of which their needs put them at a much lower level of learning. When we had 2 RSP teachers at Cabrillo, it was a constant challenge to meet the needs of my students, but we did. Now, with a vacant full-time and part-time RSP teacher, which mysteriously isn't even a position this year, it is up to the teachers, aides, principals, school site psychologists to scramble and come up with appropriate support plans, all while trying to reassure parents that the district's priority is to hire RSP teachers. Then I ask, are they? I want to be that glass is half full type of person, but it's getting harder and harder. Recently I was told, quote, "There's nothing more urgent to our district than finding RSP teachers, and I hope you know that as an employee of this district, you're communicating that to parents." Only for the district representative to say to parents in an IEP meeting that we will most likely not have one this school year. I was shocked by the bluntness on how this was delivered. In addition, I've been in a meeting where district representatives have also rightfully admitted that this district is out of compliance and that parents could just sue the district. Again, so blunt. Then proceeded to explain their plan of action and the compensatory package. And by the way, I have been articulating that the district has been actively looking for teachers because I honestly, glass half full person, that the districts that they were, especially hiring a new administrative person. I've also tried to appease parents and put out fires of emotions. I, along with my fellow teachers, go above and beyond to work with paras to keep the students engaged and make constant modifications and accommodations under the circumstances.
30 seconds.
This form of defeatism type of communication does not assure me that the district's priority is to obtain RSP teachers. In fact, I feel like it was the opposite, and I hope the board can realize the impact of these positions and acknowledge the extra work the teachers, school site psychologists, paraprofessionals are doing to ensure the needs of all student learning. Thank you.
Natasha Glasgow.
Okay, don't start yet. I still have to type in my password really fast. Okay. I'm Natasha Glasgow, a former student of Pacifica School District. My mom taught in Pacifica School District at Cabrillo for 16 years. My two kids, Ryan and Emily, go to Ocean Shore, first grade and kindergarten, and I've taught here since 2007. Before that as a sub. So I really feel connected to this district, and I am proud to work here amongst some of the most passionate and amazing, inspiring teachers that I've ever met in my life. I really love teaching. I love teaching in Pacifica, and it's my dream for my children to continue going to school here at our amazing schools, and for me to work here until retirement. The one thing that is especially important to me is for staff to feel respected, valued, and treated fairly. I think that it's safe to say that everybody in this room is here for the same reason, that we're all here for the kids. I think that no matter where we're sitting in this room, on the floor or behind one of these desks or out in the parking lot, peeking through the windows, I think we're all here for the students. And no matter what different issues come up, like, we're all really on the same side, and we want the best for the students. There's some big issues facing our school district right now, and I see many people working together to help make sure that our students, our children, don't feel any of these issues in the classroom or at school. Some of the things that I've seen is the teachers have stepped up to ensure that the students receive as much support as possible. That includes like general ed students, RSP students, kids with no IEPs yet, but might have one in the future when there are enough teachers to help them. There are teachers working above and beyond to make up for the shortages in our staffing levels as a district, and I think that that can't go ignored. There are classes without credentialed teachers in our district right now, and then other teachers in the school are helping to write the lesson plans for the subs that go into those classrooms because they care about the students. And that's huge because they're spending their own time, their days off, to go in and sub for the classrooms that don't even have enough subs to fill the positions with no teachers.
30 seconds.
Okay. Hearing about things being discussed and decided behind closed doors is disappointing to me, especially when many of the decisions affect teachers directly. I think it's important for all of us to be informed, included, and to work together on every side to come up with solutions that can work for all of our kids and for us. That's all.
Ilya Varnaya. Ilna?
Ilya?
Ilya, is that right?
There you go, good job on the pronunciation.
All right. Hello, hello. My name is Ilya Varnayev. I'm better known to some as Mr. V. This is my third year at Sunset Ridge as a kindergarten teacher. I live just down the block from school. In fact, I moved to Pacifica to take this job. I've been welcomed in by the community, and I really value being a part of it. However, the core values for negotiations approved by the board last week make me feel as though I'm not being valued as a teacher. When I hear words like reality-based, fiscal solvency, and collaborative, what I hear is that there will be no increase in teacher compensation and that we're expected to be content with what we have.
I understand that living in the Bay Area as a teacher is not easy. We know this. However, when every neighboring district pays significantly more, that job is not made any easier. For comparison, if I worked in Daly City this year, I would have earned over $7,000 more. If I worked in nearby Brisbane, I would have earned over $10,000 more this year. If I worked just over the hill in South San Francisco, I would have earned over $12,000 more this year. This is a glaring disparity, and it reflects poorly on our community, of which I consider myself a part. In my relatively short time at Sunset Ridge, I've seen many colleagues leave for greener pastures, whether that meant moving away to somewhere more affordable or jumping ship to a better paying district. The sad reality is that this creates a revolving door effect, and this has very real outcomes for students. The core values presented last week used words like the best interest of our students and talked about maintaining a student focus. I am here to tell you that teacher retention directly aligns with those goals. As a district, you will not be able to retain highly qualified teachers without paying them more. It's just that simple. As a colleague of mine recently said, while standing right here, what are you doing to retain me? Thank you.
Denise Gonzalez.
I'm Denise Gonzalez. I'm a parent of a 4th grader at Ortega, an 8th grader at IBL, and I now have a sophomore at Terra Nova. I've also been on the Ortega PTO for 6.5 years, and now I've been on the IBL PTO for 1.5 years. I'd like to thank you for letting us come up here and talk, and I also really appreciate the YouTube videos. I think it's really helpful for us and the community to stay involved even when we can't make the meetings. So far, I've had a great experience at Ortega and IBL. I wrote this down. I'm reading now. My children are learning in a safe and nurturing environment with experienced teachers. Both Ortega and IBL have become somewhat of a second home for us with back-to-school nights, open houses, movie nights, and other school events and activities. And of course, just chatting with teachers and parents at drop-off and pickup. I love our teachers. The way they selflessly give to our children in schools, with sometimes half the pay and double the amount of students per student than other Bay Area schools. Unfortunately, I've become aware that many teachers are feeling unappreciated. The larger salaries that can be found in neighboring districts are sounding more tempting, and recently I've had a couple of veteran teachers tell me they're thinking of leaving our school district, even if they have to start at a base pay again. That would be devastating. I think right now, at Ortega at least, we're kind of in a bubble because everything seems fine on the surface, but things are starting to fester. I'm worried that if things are not done and soon to make our teachers feel appreciated, then we can anticipate more teacher vacancies next year. That is why I'm standing up here today. I have watched the past 2 board meetings on YouTube and know that testing scores are important. It is a way to gauge how much our students are learning. Our scores have shown improvement which could not have happened without our experienced teachers. If we lose them, it's going to be very hard for a new teacher to catch up. Our teachers are the lights in our school, and we need to keep them on.
Natalie Aberrante.
I was going to talk with the
Abinante.
special ed
Natalie?
update.
Michael Najar.
Talking
Did I say that right?
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, and especially teachers of Pacifica School District. I want to thank you so much for being here and for teaching my children. I was so moved. Is it Ilya? Yes. That was amazing. I have to say, please, another round of applause. It takes a lot of courage for a teacher to stand up in front of the board and to speak so directly and passionately to you. And I'm just so grateful that they're willing to do that. I'm a parent of two students in Pacifica, 5th grade Holden and 3rd grade Scarlett, and I'm so grateful that some of their teachers are here tonight. I'm also the step-parent of a PSD graduate, so I've been in the district for 12 years. In that time, Pacifica has changed, wouldn't you agree? Home prices, yeah, a little up. The strange warming effect of climate change. The wonderful additions like Grand Hot Pot. Have you guys been? Soul Grind. The Devil's Slide pavement. Isn't that wonderful? Lots of wonderful additions. So much has changed, but it's remarkably strange how little has changed with our treatment of teachers in this district. Pacifica school teachers are some of the best teachers in the state. How is it that I know this? Well, they teach in less than ideal conditions, with little support, with increasing expectations that range from being wellness counselors, 504s, IEPs, protecting students from potential violence, and somehow they stay and do remarkable work. I'm a teacher. I don't know how they do it. I'm embarrassed to say in front of you that I teach in a very supportive district, the one that recognizes with rising expectations, costs, comes additional salary demands. And yes, I teach in a district with lots of money. I acknowledge that. It'd be hard to hide. But I've also taught at districts with a lot of money who did not value teachers, that did not understand that with additional expectations come additional salary demands. Entrenched thinking is an incredible problem. In those 12 years, a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things haven't. Where is the money going to come from? I don't know. I can't answer that. But it is time for creative solutions. It's time to change. It's time to look beyond what hasn't worked and think again. I want to encourage both teachers and the district to think creatively. I'm a music teacher. This is what I do best. I was here a few years ago singing a similar tune. But if you engage in the sad stalemate, or don't make a big leap forward, we'll be here again and again and again. And I doubt Ilya will be here with us. But I think you know you are not serving the students and families of the district if you don't change. Bottom line is compensate the teachers.
Leanna Wynn. Leanna Wynn.
She's out there.
She's coming.
Sorry.
Hi. Joyce here. Hi. Sorry, I just got here. I have two boys, and they're in 5th and 6th grade in the Pacifica School District. My 6th grader has an IEP that's not being met. He's struggling, and I'm frustrated. I can only expect so much from his teachers. They're set up for failure with the system. I was given a letter that gave comp time funds for him recently. It asked me to look outside for tutors. They're expensive. They're almost $100 an hour, and most of them don't even have after-school hours. It's only during the daytime. So, or I get him put on a wait list. So I could pull him from school and take him to tutoring during the day, which is disruptive, and that means I also have to miss work for it. So I'm just wondering what my solution is to making sure my son gets a proper education. He actually said, and he says this a lot, I wrote it down, he tells me that he needs RSP and they help him understand, and he doesn't want to fail his classes, but he can't pass without the help. I'm like, what do I tell him? You know, what would you guys say to him if he were to stand up here and tell you that? It's super frustrating. I don't know exactly what the solution is, but there has to be one, because our kids are they're suffering. And, you know, I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. That's all.
Carlos Solari.
Good evening. I'm going to be all over the place a little bit, so bear with me. When my daughter was in 3rd grade, she was exposed to a pornography site, Pornhub. I made a police report. I talked to the district. Nothing became of it. The kid that exposed her was under 12 years old, so there's no legal ramifications. So in my opinion, it just got swept under the rug. Moving forward, in the 4th grade, her teacher, after the parent conference, said, hey, your child is lacking in math and she's falling behind. And so since that day forward, we tried to get her qualified for the IEP. We went through the 504 plan, we went through the testing, and it was only until October the 16th of this year that we got, okay, your child qualifies for the IEP. So a whole year and a third of this year has gone by without any help for her. Last year we had an RSP teacher at Sunset Ridge, this year we don't. So the more we waited, the more she's falling behind. She's in the 5th grade now, probably at a 3rd grade education. To say that I'm frustrated is an understatement. The due process for this IEP program really sucks, and it takes too long to get there. I'm at a loss for words, just like all the other parents here with the IEP programs. We need help, and we're struggling to, how can I say, find a peace and you know, to tell our daughter, you're not dumb. You just need a little extra help. And it's an emotional roller coaster when your daughter's hooked on porn, and this happened last year around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and your wife is in at home feeling that she's worthless. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Correspondence? Does anybody want to start? I'll just start. I wasn't here at the last October 30th meeting. I've done quite a bit, but the most important thing I did is I went to the Sanchez Art Center for the Ohlone new building opening, and it was a great turnout. And I also tried and started to do the hike, which ended up being too much for me, but I tried. And I wanted to do that because my daughter Rebecca generated a petition through the high schools to try to get recognition of the Ohlone along the trails. And so she's in Kansas, so I thought I would try that. But so it's been a really good month.
So I went to the same, they're calling it the Ohlone Portola Heritage Trail now.
Yeah.
So did that hike and then also went to the Adobe Sanchez opening, that was nice. And then today I was up in Sacramento presenting at the California Education Research Association meeting and talking about how much the state needs to spend on education to provide all of our students with an adequate education. And that's what I presented today. I think that's all I have.
Make progress?
I put out the research and hopefully people listen.
Thank you. I was a Halloween helper at Lindemar, handing out treats to the kids and observing their parade, which was great. Jennifer always does a great job. There she is. I also did the hike. I attended the San Mateo Equity Network evening, which you did too, where we were talking about defining equity and barriers and equity versus equality. Very interesting. We'll have another meeting in a few months. And I think that was it.
I was also at the Portola Ohlone mural dedication at the community center and all the speakers there. And quite a few people from Sacramento that were at the event also. And I imagine they'll have an event every year that weekend here in town. Did a couple shifts at the book fair in Ortega, and it seemed very successful. It was just going solid the whole time. at Ortega. Just, it's amazing how much money they can raise just selling a few books at a time. And then there was the San Mateo County Housing Task Force meeting last Thursday. And other than December, we're going to be meeting every month and see what the county can do to work together on that.
I also attended the Equity Network meeting with you guys, and I am enjoying those meetings because they talk about how to provide help to students, like the gentleman who was talking about his daughter. Because all students are different, so the difference between equality and equity and how we can provide the help that students need individually. So I am really enjoying those, and I hope that we all can gather together to do the workshop work. I think we have to work as a board on it. I think it will be very helpful during this very hard time. A lot of our students are struggling. I think this will help us kind of think creatively as to what to do going forward to help our district. So it's been good.
Let's see. Today I attended a workshop around pre-K with Heather Carlin, our early learning coordinator, and put on by Christine Thorstensen, our former early learning coordinator, thinking about the youngest students through third grade and how both from the state and just as a focus of research is how important those years are. Tomorrow, actually last night was our second of kindergarten parent information nights at Valamar School that 4 of our principals presented. 2 weeks ago we had another one held at Sunset Ridge, just a common message around what's taught in kindergarten and skills that students should have going into kindergarten, and at both of the events, our leadership really represented us very, very well. Answered some really important questions for parents, and as they were walking out, parents felt great about that event, so that was a really good one.
Okay, district business, district goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description description of each board agenda item. The details of each of those district goals can be assessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website www.pacificasd.org under District Information Board of Trustees. Did we want to?
We should have done that before we approved the agenda.
Oh, okay. So 11A, Single Plan for Student Achievement, SIPSAs, LCAP Goals 1, 2, and 3, Operations and Governance. Will?
All right, so this is plan for student achievement, and this the purpose of this presentation is to inform the audience regarding the school SIPSAs, known as SIPSAs. We're going to reflect on current needs and think about alignment with the LCAP. These SIPSAs are aligned with the LCAP, and then we're going to have a presentation from each of the schools by the principal with regards to their particular SIPSA, their school's particular SIPSA, and then after that there'll be an opportunity for you as a board to answer any, ask any questions with regards to their particular SIPSAs. I just explained that, that's the agenda now. Just a little bit about the SIPSA process and how it kind of aligns with the other things, the other pieces of, the other documents and plans that we have for the district, the LCAP, which is the Local Control Accountability Plan, and the federal addendum, which I can say was reviewed by the state, and as of today, I received an email today that it was all approved to be put forward to the feds. So that was exciting to hear today. But all three of them interact with each other, so you're looking at an alignment with all three of them. And then with regard to the LCAP and the SIPSA alignment, there's usually a goal around English language, arts, ELD, a goal around math, and then a goal around climate and SEL. You might have a fourth goal, but they will fall under one of those three, usually under one of those three categories. The purpose for the SIPSAs is to not only coordinate all ed services, but also to address how funds are being spent, integrate purposes of all state and federal programs. It's also a tool to inform the community of the work that's happening at the schools. It guides staff in providing what their overall goals are and how instruction occurs. And then also there's a number of compliance requirements that are embedded within the SIPSAs. In developing a SIPSA, there's this cycle of inquiry, and it's called a continuous cycle of improvement, and it just basically is about analyzing student data, measuring an effectiveness, identifying the goals and activities, and then getting board approval, and then there's a plan implementation, and then it's monitored and evaluated, and then the cycle starts all over again. So it's a constant cycle. School side councils work to create a plan that includes school goals that are aligned with district goals, and builds on the premise that students are capable of learning, is verified by data, and it also focuses just not on student achievement, but also on social emotional learning and interventions that are connected to both. So school site councils work to also implement high actions. So, within the SIPSAs, you're not going to get everything that a particular school does, every action that a school does, but it really kind of focuses on those high leverage activities. And then, the hope is that they're using research-based strategies, and that they're strategic in how they implement those strategies and coordinate those resources that are connected. The timeline, now this is the existing timeline. I'm going to propose at some point of changing this timeline a bit, but right now, the October, November, in August and September, there's an analyzing the summative data and a plan revision. October, November, the plan is adopted. November, February, plan is implemented, and in February through June is analysis of formative data and plan development. Again, I think I'd like to have a discussion about possibly adjusting this, because much of the data that we presently use is not aligned with the way the PSD timeline is. So, much of the data that we use to evaluate our goals and activities is data that comes out in November and December. So it would be great to move the adoption of a plan back. And that's part of the considerations of well, that should say 1920 data considerations. That's right, 1819 data, it's 1819 data. So a lot of the data they look at is from the 1819 school year. The summative LPAC results, which were released, are released at the end of November, and the test dates for those are in February and March. DataQuest has their own schedule of how when they release certain data based off CalPADS reports, and like chronic absenteeism and suspension reports are released in December. The California dashboard is going to be released on December 9th, so that's coming up, and then Data Zone has been used to get some of that information that is released later to us earlier because we get the initial data from there. And so we're able to kind of anticipate what that data will look like when it gets to the dashboard or when it gets to those reports on DataQuest. So each school is going to have an opportunity to share their SIPSA highlights. They're obviously not going to share every word that's in the SIPSA, but they're each going to go. And the way I was hoping to do this was that each school would do their presentations first, and then just so to kind of coordinate that piece, when they're all finished, then we can start with, like, for instance, the first school and say, is there any questions about that first school's SIPs? Is that okay with the board? Okay. So we're going to start off with Ortega and Patrick Jackson.
Good evening. All right, so some more highlights from Ortega from our SIPs. I'm really proud of our task growth. We're nearly making 100% growth from year to year in both categories. ELA, our students are up to 30.1 points above average student distance from standard Met, and then in math we're up to 27.4 above our average student distance from standard Met. So we're really proud of that growth. With ELA, we're going to continue to use Imagine Learning as an early intervention tool for our first graders and our second graders to offer a little support with reading. We're really proud of the family engagement library we've put up in our main hallway. It's a really great resource for our students to grab books from. We're especially encouraging them right now to grab some books before Thanksgiving break to take home with them and enjoy. With science, specifically 5th grade, they're looking at our science program. It's like an environmental principle lens. They're trying to come up with projects that can affect our campus and hopefully the community as well. I've had a chance to sit in on some of their sessions, and they're coming up with ideas like giving out raffle tickets at lunch for students that have reusable products, maybe having students bring silverware from home for a week to see if that could cut down on spork usage and things like that. So some really creative ideas from our 5th graders. Math, we also partnered with Imagine this year. We're going to use Imagine Math as an enrichment. We're trying that out and see how it goes. And then SEL, we're starting year 2 of Soul Shop. It'll be fully implemented at this point. Our students will receive 4 student workshops. We have a PD for our staff. It includes a parent night. And then we're also starting the Peacemaker program this year as well. And that'll kind of have our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders out there as peer helpers on the yard to kind of facilitate students that might be having conflicts and help them come to solutions. Those are our highlights. Thank you.
All right, next we have Ingrid B. Lacey and Dan Little.
Good evening. So looking at some of the highlights from our SIPSA and the results of our student performance, our math increased by 3 points. We're still 15 points below that magic line for our scores. But we've been seeing overall growth every year for the last 3 years. We've seen, this is the smallest level of growth that we've seen, but we're still seeing that the students are progressing well and learning with a lot of great work from our classroom teachers, working in a department, working in a cohesive manner to be able to deliver a really solid mathematics education to our students and really making sure and ensuring that they know what they're doing when testing time comes. We've continued to partner with the Pacifica Library to provide access to the bookmobile. It comes once a month. Students can reserve books online and have them delivered directly to the school via the bookmobile. Every student all of our students have access to it. And if you do not have a library card, they will sign you up right then and there for it. And you will walk out of the bookmobile with your brand new library card and whatever you'd like to take with you. What's really cool about the bookmobile too is not just books anymore. There's a whole bunch of different resources kids can get. There's GoPro cameras that the teachers can use and get to do videos with the kids. They have some robotics equipment for kids to be exploring with the teachers in the classroom. So it's a really great use of the traveling library that comes to our school. we're trying to maintain the full inclusion for resource special education. You kind of heard what's going on a little earlier, but that is still a focus for our resource students to get them the exposure to the grade level content standards, but with the support required to make sure that they're understanding the content and having the material modified or accommodated for them. We are still maintaining our academic centers 5 days per week in the morning and 3 days in the week in the afternoon through the grant from the San Mateo County Office of Education. In the morning we have it's staffed by certificated teachers, and the morning's crew is really focuses on language arts, social studies, and in the afternoons it's math and science. So if the kids are needing some additional assistance in those particular areas, we make it known to the families and the children that, you know, if you need help with math, you go see in the afternoon, or in the mornings you can have help with your language arts materials. We have Spanish at our school site, and it's for all grade levels. It's an elective. 6th and 7th grade is exploratory this year, and then the 8th grade was finishing up their first trimester of the high school level material. We're using the high school material that's used by Jefferson Union High School District, and the thought is that if the students can complete that year 1 of Spanish for the high school, then they'll enter in with the opportunity to start at year 2 for the Spanish program. And it's been going really, really well. We're still trying to refine and work on our partnership with the high school district. We're continuing our partnerships with Spark Poetry, Boys and Girls Club, Spindrift, really providing wonderful after-school programming for our kids, keeping them off the street if they don't have a place to go home. Spark Poetry meets for an hour after school. Boys and Girls Club provides our sports programming after school, as well as a ton of different things that the kids can participate in for a nominal fee. And then Spindrift has Teacher Rachel comes out every week to teach hip-hop dance to our kids, and that's just a wonderful activity for our students. This year we've providing family engagement activities around supporting student literacy. We've already had our first family engagement night. That was earlier this year. Very well attended, really focusing on how to engage your student with the material that they're doing in the classroom beyond the, what did you learn today? Nothing. Or what did you do at school? Oh, nothing, or I had fun. Well, what is that? And really giving the parents an opportunity to be able to engage in a conversation that's meaningful with their children. We are already in the midst of planning our next family engagement night, and that's all around mathematics and how parents can really support their students, not by teaching them math, but just by checking in with them and monitoring and helping to advocate for them, for their needs. And then our final one in the spring will be around test taking as we get closer to the CASP. And then we've recently completed this for our PD day, and we're going to continue this as a theme, as focusing professional development around supporting our English learners in the classroom. What are some of those things that we can use as scaffolds across all curricular areas that we can be doing in every single classroom, but it's universal, so that our English learners can see them in the classroom and know how to help themselves and be able to respond to questions and feel like they are actually being able to communicate with their peers and their teacher. We had a great focus professional development with the County Office of Education on November 1st, and we're continuing that on as we look at January.
Hi, I'm Ellie Cundiff from Sunset Ridge, and we are very happy with the direction that we're doing this year on family engagement and supporting kids with literacy. We've seen a increase of 12 points of our students identified as socially, economically disadvantaged. And with our Hispanic students, we saw a 6% increase. And our African American group, which is a small group, made a 39.9 point increase. And in math, we saw a similar progress with our underrepresented or historically underrepresented groups. Our attendance, we have seen a decline in this number or percentage of students that have been identified as chronically absent, which means that they're missing more than 10% of their school year, which is 18 days. So that's it's a big number, and it has a big impact. And research shows that those kids are more likely to fall behind in academics and then drop out of school. So 3 years ago, we were at 13%, then we went down to 10.5, and now we're at 8.5. And in our panorama survey, we see that kids' perceptions are increasing in climate and support for academic learning, and increase in knowledge and fairness of discipline, rules, and norms. The action steps that we want to do, I think really with the support of the Family Engagement Institute that we went to this summer, has really allowed us all to rally together and have a focus. So we kicked off our school year by having a goal of improving reading for all students. And we've talked about it as a staff. We shared it with families. We've done a parent ed night around literacy. And we are really, I feel like we really have gotten the message out. We had a family cafe on Tuesday, and we had some parents come, and we talked about strategies, and we have links to learning for parents at every meeting and event that we do. So we're looking forward to that. And we're excited because we've come up with a plan to do some home visits to address attendance. And we had a meeting with some very dedicated teachers a couple weeks ago, and they said, let's not just focus on students with poor attendance, but let's focus on some students that are always doing a good job. And so we've come up with a system. We have another planning meeting with our TOSA, who's leading the group, Tony Corden, and I think it's exciting to not just focus on kids that need intervention, but those kids that are always doing a good job. So I think it will be an exciting year. Thank you.
Julie Tarango, Ocean Shore.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Julie from Ocean Shore. It is exciting to come up here to highlight some really special parts. I'm glad you mentioned that this is only a snapshot of some of the extraordinary things that I believe are happening at Ocean Shore. And there is data that speaks to that, but I want to kind of dive even deeper to kind of tell you about some special things that are occurring that I think produce the data that you see. And it's largely in part to the hard effort and the collaborative effort of all the stakeholders that serve the kids. One piece of data I want to note too is the increase with our special ed students in 8 points in math towards the standard and 9 points above where the district average is. And I think that is done by, again, a strong collaborative effort. And you're going to hear me speak to this because I think that laces through a lot of what I'm seeing happening at Ocean Shore. One thing we're really excited about this year is the continuation of educating and reaching out to our parent population. You've heard some of my other colleagues talk about the family engagement nights, and this was actually something that began back in January, and I wouldn't say it began. It's no secret that parents are a strong part of what we do at Ocean Shore, but the way in which we've really decided to make a concerted effort to use our PTO meetings as an opportunity to really engage with families to make education and give them tips and tools to help. And their receptivity has been really inspiring. We've continued with that along with hosting some literacy nights. There's been a very dedicated team of teachers and our vice principal and parents who have worked to come up with events and be very creative about how we can make sure not just parents who go to PTO meetings, but all parents of every child at our school feels included. So we hosted a literacy night with a morning session, bright and early for some of our teachers, and also in the evening where we tried to not only kick off our readathon event, but also make sure that parents were walking home with tools to help their child with reading and build their comprehension skills. We've also hosted something called Parent University this year, where we invited parents to come out to give them better tools on how to, best practices on not only working in the classroom, but also just better awareness of what school safety looks like. So if they're on campus, they know how to respond in the event of a school emergency. We've done a lot of some really exciting work around not just family engagement, but also student engagement. And so we had a wonderful day on our professional development day where we just talked with our specialists. And we really, as a team of school teachers and administrators, sat around and said, okay, who are those kids coming in our doors on Monday, and how do we better serve them? And so we had some time to really look at our caseloads and look at each other and collaborate to come up with plans to really address the needs of those that need it most. We will continue to be working on that this year. Another piece that we're looking at is to increase our intervention systems and processes. I was really impressed by the caliber of the professionalism of our teachers at the end of last year, where we took a survey and said, where do we want to really invest our funds? And though we're a K-8 school, the ability of our teachers to have that bird's eye view and know that the early intervention is going to not only improve the benefit of our earliest students, but for everybody. And so we decided at that point collectively to invest in increasing that intervention for emerging readers, whether that be students that are coming in new with limited language skills or students who need that extra boost of support. So we have expanded that this year. We are continuing with our data dive meetings, which is meetings that we're holding a couple times a year, and I've been thoroughly impressed with the way our team has come together. Teachers arrive prepared with different questions they have about students as a way for us to really make sure that not one student is falling through the gap. Therefore, we're gathered as a team of, it's myself, our vice principal, our resource specialist, our school psychologist. We bring in our counselor if needed and other specialists to just really strategize and calibrate our resources to understand how we can best meet those needs. And that's been a very successful process, one in which we've built on from last year. We continue to use interventions such as our homework club, various language support. We're really excited this year to be offering a new elective for our middle school students, where they'll be working as coaches with students who are coming in learning new languages, and they're working under the guidance of a support staff who's going to be helping. So not only are those older students building wonderful leadership skills, but the younger students are also becoming, having that one-on-one support, which is going to be really successful. We're excited. And something I want to nod to at the bottom that, again, I think is something I'm really proud of for our school is that if you notice, based on some of our data survey, that 88% of our 3rd through 5th graders report to have feeling very supported of the climate of support for academic learning. That's a 10% gain, and I think that speaks to the way in which those students feel supported and secure and safe coming to school, and I think that's number one when you consider what we need to do. So I'm really proud of all the things that are happening. There's a lot of fun things coming up for our school, and including increase in staffing and more professional development, but at the end of the day, it's the story in which the way the kids are feeling, what their mindset is when they walk in, and the way in which everyone is committed to supporting them. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Flores-Ike, and I'm very proud to present this data, although because it's my first year at Cabrillo, I can't take a whole lot of credit for what happened last year. In any case, some of this is current, things that we're doing right now, but it's kind of a rear view mirror in some of the, the CASP scores. So we do have a significant increase in the scores for all students with regard to English language arts, and that's about 30.4 points above, as Dan Little said, that magic area where we need to be. So I think that that's pretty fantastic. Math. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged students made a great gain last year over the year prior. That's still below that magic spot, that standard, but it does show a lot of growth, and I think that's pretty terrific. School-wide, we are 14.2 points above that great spot of a 3. Social-emotional learning actions in the school climate. Some of the things that we're doing to promote a positive school climate are the Orca Power, catching students being good. Those are drawings. If we see a student doing something great, we give them an Orca Power, and then once a week we draw a name for some recognition. The kids really like that. We have a student leadership class, They have some mentor roles on campus, a lot of, they just help with a lot of things, and they love that. They even help as crossing guards. And a lot of kids really want to be in that leadership class. It gives them some recognition that they love. We are also involved in the family engagement events. Just today, my family literacy engagement team had a 1-hour coaching call. We're planning our first literacy night. There were some things in place before I came which will still be happening, like the 3rd grade poetry cafe. So those are all amazing literacy focused family engagement things that will continue. November 1st, we had the school-wide professional development and restorative practices. I was really glad that the staff voted on that. That's something that I believe in really strongly. It's not about a punitive punishment for a student. It's about changing behavior. And if we can do that in a way that is giving students tools, helping to teach them how to resolve conflict or how to restore a damaged relationship, isn't that what it should be about? It's not about punitive. So I'm glad that everyone now has had at least an exposure to that. We have monthly safety drills. We know that, we want the kids to feel safe on campus. We want them to know what to do if there was an emergency. We've had the earthquake drills and the fire drills. The last one we had was the active shooter drill. And we try and make it so it's not scary for students, but we want to make sure that, it's our job to keep them as safe as we can. And speaking to that, 94% of the parent perception survey, 94% of parents feel that their child is safe on campus. So again, I can't take credit for that number, but I feel actually really proud of that. And with these continuous drills, I'm hoping that students have a high number and they feel quite safe as well. And that's really the highlights for Cabrillo. Thank you.
Valmont, Monica?
Good evening. So for us, for our English Language Arts goal, we met our goal for that. And in math, we almost met our goal. We made progress, but we didn't quite get there, so we'll still continue working on that. For school climate, we talked about the panorama survey and some of the other highlights. For us, we had an increase in school connectedness for 3rd through 5th grade. And we also had an increase for 6th through 8th grades perception of safety. So I thought that was something to note. We are continuing our leveled literacy intervention for our early readers. We value that as a school. In addition, our wonderful teachers provide targeted instruction for our English language learners. Something we've implemented recently is our PBIS handbook. It's something we've been working on for the last couple years, just really kind of getting it solid. So I'm proud of the work our staff has done with that. In November, our entire Valamar staff was trained in restorative practices and circles, and it's really neat to see everybody dabbling in circles and trying new things. Change is hard, but they're giving it a shot, which I appreciate. And I think the kids are enjoying it too. We have a wonderful maker space. I actually see some parents in the audience that are helping me empower our teachers to be more confident about bringing classes in there, but we're excited about our maker space. We'll continue our wonderful things like our student morning broadcast. Some of you may have seen it, but it's the handiwork of our students in 8th grade with Mrs. Alderson, and they put on our morning news for us. We also have our school-wide incentives, our work with mindfulness, and our wonderful peer helpers program. Those are some of our highlights for that.
All right, so this is a chance. We'll test you. This is the chance for you to ask questions. I'm going to go back to the first, to Ortega, and I'm just going to leave the highlights up there. But if any of you have any questions with regard to Ortega's SIPSAs or what they spoke to the highlights, please feel free to ask that.
I have a question about the Soul Shop. I was just wondering what kind of strategies or techniques you're seeing the kids use in real life, not like in the sessions that they're having?
So, out on the yard and
Yeah.
such, yeah. So we went through 2 workshops last year, and so the 2 workshops we went through a check-in workshop where they kind of learned to kind of get in touch with their own feelings, process how they might be feeling and why that might cause them to act away. And then we had our clean it up. So that takes our students through kind of this 4-step process where it's kind of this back and forth conversation where there's an acknowledgement of what kind of feelings were hurt. There's, empathy expressed on both sides, typically because the person who had their feelings hurt can kind of see the other side as well as they talk through it. And then they clean it up at the end, and it typically ends in a handshake. So those are the kind of ways we see the students using it currently. It's going to shift a little bit with the Peacemaker program because now we actually have 2 peace paths on our campus as well, which students will be able to kind of walk down, and it dictates that conversation that they can have with each other to solve whatever minor conflict they might be having on the yard.
And that's all funded by the PTO?
Yes.
That's all I have for Ortega.
So I wanted to commend you on really some pretty good results that you've gotten. I have a couple of questions, and sorry for my naivete about the intervention, the Imagine Learning intervention. I thought I heard you say it was for the earlier grades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of overall you've got some nice colors. One of the colors that is a little challenging is the orange color for your socioeconomically disadvantaged in ELA. So I'm just wondering what other types of strategies you might be putting in place to try to support that challenged subpopulation.
Yeah, so in addition to using Imagine for an intervention tool, we also have a level literacy intervention program, and we have a reading recovery program as well.
Yeah.
Our reading recovery programs, that's run by Pam Moore, who's a retired teacher, so she has an extensive background in that. And then our level literacy intervention program, that's led by Vicki Broadway, and she's got extensive training in that program as well.
Okay.
So the students that we don't reach with Imagine, we get to those 2 people to work on that reading intensive to try to
and
build
have
those
you
little-
found those like reading recovery to be? I mean, that's a very well known.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be effective?
Oh yeah. Our teachers love
I
both
just
of us.
actually have to clarify just a bit, is that it is taught by someone that has a reading recovery background, and that's her educational, it's not reading recovery.
Oh, okay.
So it's a reading
I got you.
intervention taught by a reading
Recovery teacher. Okay.
As you know, it's a very
That's fine.
specific.
Well, it's super specific, and I've
Right.
seen it for 3rd graders that are at
Right.
the lowest decile or whatever. Great. Thanks.
Hi, Patrick. Couple questions. Under the EL enrollment conclusions, I'm just wondering if you have a quick explanation as to why the EL learners, there were none reclassified. I heard from Will, is that sort of your?
Yeah, I would kind of defer to his response on that.
Okay, I
based on
won't
the
take
data.
the 30 minutes it'll take for you to explain that to the room. But thank you. That's okay. So, okay, you already answered that. The after-school academic center, who facilitates that? Is that just sort of an open time, anybody can kind of come and bring their, or is there like dialogue with the teachers about who needs?
Yeah,
what kind of
so we
supports?
try to center around our 3rd to 5th grade students. There are some lower grade students that attend as well, but the majority are 3rd through 5th.
Mhm.
We have 2 school assistants that run it, and then we also reach out to Terra Nova for high school volunteers to
Oh, okay.
provide some more one-on-one support.
Right.
I'm sorry, could you repeat too? I think
You answered it.
Did I get that? Okay.
For the things like literacy night, science night, gardening program, are SDC students and families included in these types of events?
Yeah, so we always, our events are always open to all, of course. And then, programs like our garden program, our art program, our science program, they really give wonderful mainstream opportunities for those students as well. So that's where you'll
Great.
frequently see them mainstreaming with classes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great. Implementation training on social emotional learning, including community circles. Do you see the restorative practices being embraced school-wide at Ortega?
We had Bettina Graff come through actually a couple years ago at this point, and our teachers have really embraced just circles in the morning in general is a good way to start the morning and check in with their students. And then as those issues or concerns arise over the course of a school, you're using a restorative circle to address that in their classrooms as well.
Great. And then my last question, regarding the letters to the chronically absent, tardy students, are these sent in the language of the home?
So that's something we're going to work on this year. I'm going to collaborate with Betsy Belkins. She's our RSP teacher, but I've kind of put her in charge of our attendance program this year.
Okay.
And so we're talking back and forth. We've actually got our 60-day list right now. We were just looking at it together today.
Oh, great.
And as we identify those students, we try the best we can to get them that letter in their native language or their language that's spoken at home.
So that's just starting this year then?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Patrick Ortega? No?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hello again.
I'll just start again. With the bookmobile. I've seen it around town, and so I was just wondering how you go about giving access to that for the children.
How we got access for it?
Yeah, or how you give it to them, like on a weekly basis.
So it's once a month they come, and what we do, it parks right out in the staff parking lot right by where the library is. And so Julie Smith, our librarian, makes the announcement that to all the teachers to let your kids know that, the bookmobile's there for them to access at lunchtime. So we have the gate open for them with signage that, head towards the bookmobile, and so they can visit during their lunch period.
I think that's great. It brings me back to when I was a kid. I used to go to the bookmobile. So do you think it's successful, or is it building momentum?
I see it very well attended by the kids, they do like to visit. I see them getting books. I see teachers using it, going out there and reserving materials in the past. So I think it's just a really great opportunity to link, have another linkage for kids to be able to access our public library system.
Does anybody else have any questions? Happy?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm curious about the attendance of your family engagement activities. How's that going? And also the attendance of the academic centers.
So to the family engagement program, our first one, we were focusing on our sixth graders for sixth grade literacy. We had over 50 parents come to that very first one. We sent out invitation after invitation with, please respond, because we provided dinner as well. And so we wanted to just get a head count just to see how many people were coming so we could get enough food for everybody. From what I saw and what I was able to experience just being in the greater room and then being able to see what was going on, the engagement was very high. The teachers did an absolutely amazing job working with the families and really giving them some tools to be able to engage with their kids. So the next one that we're having for math when we get back in January is going to be open to all 3 grade levels. So we're hoping to see, hundreds of people show up. It would be great, But for the first go around for that family engagement program, we were very pleased to see, the families that did come out. For the academic center, the morning, we have over 30 kids that come in every day. It's completely voluntary. Many of the students that are coming in have had a conference with their families, and it's been recommended that they come in to get some additional time to be able to focus on work and get some assistance either in the morning or the afternoon, whichever works for them. So the morning ones are pretty heavily attended. It starts at 8 o'clock and goes to 8:45. And the afternoon ones, it all depends on the time of year. Sometimes, we're looking at when we get closer to progress report and report card time, we see the afternoon ones tick up a lot. But in the afternoons, we're having anywhere between 10 and 15 students drop in.
And they usually help with like homework, or is it more like a tutoring kind of?
It could be both, you know, so we have, you know, kids have access to the computers in the classroom to be able to do their homework. In the afternoon, we see more like, hey, I didn't understand that concept in the area of math. And so the teachers are working with, the math teachers are working with the kids to help support them to reteach the concept or just, you know, guide them through some of the questions that they're having. So it's a little bit of both. It depends on what the kids are bringing in and what they really want to do. But the teachers are there to either provide homework assistance or to reteach what you know, skills.
So I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that. I had a similar question about the centers. So my questions were really, what is the uptake of the academic centers? You had answered that. And then, you know, another question is, are the kids who need it most making use of it? And if not, are there strategies being implemented? What I'm worried about is that there's serious challenge with your SED, your socioeconomically disadvantaged, and your EL population. And I just wanted to know whether those specific students are uptaking it. You sort of got on this saying the ones that you had parent-teacher conferences or that. But what's the coverage of those students that really need that are actually making it?
So in the past, when I first got to IBL, we had a 0 period for the English learners. And it was all voluntary. It wasn't like a mandatory program. And so we didn't see... There was zero consistency in kids coming in. They would come in 3 days a week, 1 day a week, 5 days a week. So that was difficult to serve. So we've refocused our energies to guiding them into the academic centers, which, while the 0 period was focused directly on skill acquisition, the academic center helps them on the things that they're having the greatest level of difficulty with, which is the actual work that they're doing in the classroom or homework. Those students we do invite those families and those kids to come in, as well as our socioeconomically disadvantaged families, because we do know that is a significant focus for us. We are seeing a lot of those families coming in, have been coming in, the students. Is it 100%? Absolutely not. I mean, I can't tell you that. Okay. But we do make significant effort to invite them to come in and take use of the program that we're offering. It's free.
Sure. I mean, you can draw a horse to water, you can't make them drink.
Right.
So it's always like that. Can we make the water sweeter somehow?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm interested in. Thanks.
Yeah. Kathy.
Dan. So you said that you were identifying additional technology and resource materials for EL. I'm wondering is this something you're going to be doing, or staff, or who is? That was just so I didn't quite understand what you were saying.
Right.
There.
So we have the opportunity to use Rosetta Stone through the district for supporting our English learners. Sometimes that program's cumbersome, and the kids do not. They don't enjoy it. So Julie, our librarian, has done a lot of research into finding other programs that are free, because we know money is tight. So she's worked with a number of our students in the past during their English program or during their elective time on other things, using Duolingo and other resources out there that are online resources that are cost zero for us, but are much more attractive and easier for the kids to navigate and far more engaging than Rosetta Stone. We also found that the students that the other it's not a technology but a resource material was we've really taken advantage of and used very, very well Pacifica School Volunteers. They've come in and worked with a number of our English learners to help support them in the skill acquisition and feeling confident in being able to, one, perform their academics, but also just be able to have a conversation with someone. And we've seen great results from a number of our students that have worked one-to-one with PSV.
Okay. So you also noted in one of your strategies, providing students with opportunities to access technology, additional resource support. I'm just curious what types of SPED programs are in use. Do you have like Dragon Speech, those kind of things? And Are these kinds of programs also available in your media center, or are they just?
So the beauty of the Google Suite is that all students have access to it anywhere on campus, whether it be in the library or on the Chromebooks that we have in the classroom. You can use voice dictation in the Google Suite to be able to convey your ideas if writing is a significant issue for you. And a lot of it is. It's the process of getting from your brain to out the tip of your pencil.
Right.
That's truly a difficult process for a lot of kids. But if they can speak it, and that's what I used to tell them when I was a teacher, you just told me your entire paragraph. Now let's, I wish when I was teaching I had this opportunity. They can speak it into the Chromebook and have it be able to, they can dictate their entire paper if they so chose.
So is this something that they can also access from home?
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Thank you. Math department collaboration opportunities. I'm wondering if you've also gone into the cross-subject, like math with English, something that had been noted here previously.
So that's something that our curricular leads are engaged in doing. They are right now we're working on a cross-curricular project to be able to support English learners. So it's happening not within the collaboration piece that you're talking about, but it is going on. This is more of being able to go and I want to take some time and go be able to see what's going on in this other teacher's class, and then take time to step away from that and be able to talk about what they've seen and how they can implement that in their own classroom. Our teachers are, absolutely phenomenal. They have different skill sets, and we learn from one another by watching. And so often teachers aren't able to get out of their silo to be able to go and watch another professional, apply their craft. And so that's what I want them to be able to do, is be able to go out and see your colleague. Or if it's not even here, last year we took our teachers to Bayside STEM Academy, to our math teachers, to go and see what goes on and how you implement college preparatory math there. So I want to provide them all the opportunity necessary to be able to just improve their practice.
And you're able to do that right now with the current status at the school?
In school, yeah, we can. Getting subs for an all-day affair to have people come off campus, and I have 6 math teachers, and that's quite a lot of subs. And so if we can do it in-house, by somebody going in and covering here and there, that's completely doable. It's been more of a challenge this year to get off-site.
Right. I was wondering about your analysis. It said there was only a 2-point growth last year in the math goal, but you're still listing 10-point.
I want to get to that magic number, and so we're going to shoot high, and my teachers know that, the team knows that. They've worked really hard. We were 47 points below that magic line 3 years ago, and 4 years ago, and they've just been killing it, doing some wonderful work, working so hard as a team, collaboratively learning from one another, implementing great program, refining practice and skill, and using data tremendously. And so I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to be able to do this.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else? I have one more. It's about the Spanish, and just to follow up, because I know last year we were really working on getting the credits transferred to high school.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how many kids left IBL to go into Spanish 2?
So I had, I think, 17 students graduated from the Spanish program that we had last year. There was some, Jefferson Union High School District was supposed to provide us with a summative evaluation for the students to be able to pass the test, to be able to take level 2. I think that didn't happen, so I think that happened on their campus. I'm not sure how many students were able to get into Spanish 2. This year we have 14 students leaving the program. They will be taking the summative evaluation, and then we'll see who makes it in. But it's been great to have a foreign language back at school. It's just been difficult to navigate because we're working in partnership with another school district. And so some of those things are a little tricky to navigate when we're trying to collaborate with their world languages program and getting our people trained. They've been wonderful at inviting our teacher over to all their trainings so that we can see the continuum of how things are working in the high school, and so we can flow really nicely in there. But we're still working on some hiccups.
Is there any way we can find out how many went into Spanish 2? And then I just have a question.
If I
You
can
know?
comment on that, I have a meeting with Karina Baca.
Okay.
And it's about that.
It's okay. Can you just let us know? Follow up. The last thing I have is your special ed. I kind of have a conflict going and observing a class, that has special ed kids, but is that something that I could do and go visit IBL and see how
Absolutely.
they're being mainstream and incorporated?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to come to any class. I mean, there should be no conflict.
We are working on a special ed tour that we can invite all of the board. Now, if more than 2 of you go, we have to
Yeah,
agendize it.
you have to agendize that,
But we
so.
could do that.
Okay, so I'll probably email you then. and
Please do, by all means.
and Get in
There are
there.
5 days in a week.
Is there any more questions? No.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Sunset Ridge?
I'll lead off. Hi, Ellen.
Hello.
You had noticed or specified in one of your strategies, purchase of instructional material, including nonfiction periodicals. I'm wondering if any of these are going to be applicable to your EL students, bilingual, something.
So we have not done that to make them bilingual, but our librarian, Lauren Reynolds, has been purchasing books in Spanish that match, so like Mo Williams books and things like that. And she's
great.
working on getting those. We've reached out to families to get books that are in other languages donated. And, our next biggest group is Portuguese and Arabic, so we want to get some books in those different languages.
Okay. You had a lot of the recognizing student success activities that were great. I'm wondering, sort of being devil's advocate, if you keep any data about who wins these type of awards, so that, in other words, is it the same student over and over? Because I'm just thinking of some of our students who maybe you wouldn't often think of as winning an award or standing out in that way. I'm wondering if, or is it just sort of a poll of chance? Or
Some of it's chance. We do a variety of different things. We have PAW Points, which stands for being a problem solver, always kind, willing to try, or staying safe. So if a student is seen doing any one of those things, they get a PAW Point. It's given out by all the teachers and all the staff throughout the day. And those students put them in a little jar that we have in the front office, and then every Monday morning meeting, student council randomly pulls about 12 to 16 names. Those kids all get a little stamp on their paw point, and then it's returned to them, and they get to go to the snack bar for popcorn. We have a Super Reader Award, and everybody that turns in their reading log on a monthly basis. I do a Book of the Month. I did it this morning, and then we announce kids that turn in their reading logs. I don't keep that kind of data, but we also do a monthly perfect attendance certificate. So if a student's there for the month, we always tell kids, if you didn't get it this month, you can try for next month. But again, we don't really keep that. The paw points go into, after we have the jar, then we have a tower one of the teachers built, and our goal is to fill that up and then have a school-wide party. Last year, we filled it up just in the nick of time, and we had a pillow fight, the kids against the staff. And so it was a lot of fun. The kids had a blast. It was mayhem, but it was fun. So, that's a goal. But we don't keep track of that kind of stuff.
because when I read it, I was thinking of your perfect attendance and the reader log. Those could be students who maybe have some more additional supports at home.
Yeah.
So they
So
would
what we're talking
naturally-
about now is with the family engagement, we've talked about keeping a record, the teachers keeping a record of who's turning in their logs, and then having discussions with parents about why they're not able to do it and how we can support them. And so that's a new thing, and so we're hoping that it will have a big impact on our students' success in reading and literacy.
That's great. I just noticed, this is just a general question that lucky you get to answer, but reading over all these SIPs, stop it, Dan. When the funding source is other,
Yeah.
what does that indicate?
Sometimes it might be a grant, sometimes
Okay.
we have mom money that's allocated that's not.
You have what money?
It's called, and we're running out of it, so there will be budget cuts. I just had my school site council meeting, and we talked about this. It's Medi-Cal administrative activities, and we've been getting funds for that in the
Okay.
past.
So the document they put, the document they put the SIPSA on
Mhm.
has a drop down when they have, when it says a
Oh,
funding
and then
source.
we just
And
don't see it.
I'm constantly telling DocuTrack, oh, add this, add this, add this.
Right.
And sometimes they just don't catch everything.
Yeah.
So that like, it turns into another.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I just wanted to check in your family day activities, all this community functions, you include the SDC families and put the information out to them and?
Yeah.
Great.
All of them.
And then the last one is on your home visits. This is a new program you're starting or you've been doing it?
Oh, it's new. We're going to try it this year.
Okay, and it's arranged?
So Tony Corden is arranging it. We've had a couple meetings. We've been talking about it. I do Friday morning coffee talks, and teachers have brought it up there. And so we've just been playing around with it. And this year we decided to give it a try. Tony was right on board. And so we've had a couple meetings, the two of us talking about it, talked to the counselor about it. And then, we want it to be a very positive process and building the connection. So it's not to say to families, hey, you're lacking here, but really what can we do to work as partners to get your kids to school? What came up is that we should be doing it not just for kids that, have something to work towards, but kids that have been doing a good thing. So those Paul points now, we're going to grab those, and then we're going to pull one from that, and that will be the student that we go visit and just congratulate them. We talked about bringing like a plate of cookies, maybe not homemade, maybe homemade, depending. But, we just want to build that connection. And we said, like, it could be we meet at Starbucks or at the library or something. It's to build the connection and see the kids outside of school and have them see their teacher. So what we would like to do is, once that child's picked, ask the teacher if they are interested in going. If they're not, there's about 4 or 5 teachers that have volunteered to be on the committee.
Nice.
We want it to be just like 2 people going to the house or to the meeting the family. So I'm hoping it will have a big impact.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I do. I saw your increase in ELA and math, and some of those were very significant, especially the 39.9 point increase. Have you identified what you all are doing to make such significant jumps in these areas?
I think it's the idea of getting kids to want to come to school and being comfortable at school and having fantastic teachers for them to experience school. I think it's a community effort.
Because I'm especially with the African American and Hispanic and SED students, I'd like to see that go across the district. So I'm really curious about what you guys are doing to increase it so significantly, so quickly. Is it just engagement?
It's not a quickly, we're working on it.
It's a big jump.
Yeah.
It's an engagement. Are you seeing an increase in engagement of the parents? I mean, is there something that you notice over the last few years that's different?
I think it's just, knowing the families. We are seeing families. I'm getting a lot of gray hair here, so, when I open the door, I remember the parent being a student at our school and seeing the kids get out, and it's just being part of the community and seeing that. And I think the staff is just amazing, right? They are super welcoming and put kids first, every day.
I just have one other thing. Kai, I put the exact same thing, African American 39.9%
I love South
increase.
Ridge.
I know.
My daughter went there, so. But-
And
I will
then
say that's a
here,
small group, I think there's 7 students in third through 5th grade. So it's a small group, but I'm proud of it. They also reported last year, if I'm remembering correctly, that they felt like 100% safe at school. So I think that something is working, right?
So I also put for the math and the special ed, what are you doing? Because you had an increase in that as well. And then the home visits. When I was back home in Nebraska, I was staying with one of my relatives, and she has 4 kids. And she said that a teacher was coming for a home visit, and I'm like, what? You know, and she said, oh yeah, you know, every teacher comes because then they can see what environment the child is in, and then you can, you know, you've got everybody running around screaming, you know, how's that child going to do their homework, or how are we going to help them find a place? And so I'm just really excited that that is on your list of things to do. And then I just wanted to know when your next PTO meeting is.
Good. Oh, I have my phone right here. I could probably tell you too. It's the 5th of December is a Tuesday?
It's a Thursday.
It's a 3rd?
The 3rd.
Okay. And then we have our big one on, what's the next week? The 10th?
Yeah.
If I can do math. I'm trying to do math really quickly.
I don't know about that meeting. You must have in mind.
No, yeah, it's the general PTO meeting. It's 3rd grade is going to be performing, and they're going to be doing a reading comprehension component linked to Learning for Parents. Oh, we have Market Night, Light the Night on December 12th. And that, Light the Night came from Sandy Hook, and one of the parents who, I was going to say no longer with me, but he's really with us. He's just at a different school. His kids are in high school now. So he came to me, and it was right at that time, and he said, let's do something to show kids that the communities come together in good times, not just for bad times. And so we've been doing it every year since then. Last year we did an international lantern, so the kids got to go to the makerspace and make lanterns. We had hot chocolate for them. They went shopping at the 5th grade market night, and then we walked the track in the dark. It was super fun, super exciting. Kids went crazy with the running around and being excited. So in the dark, which freaked me out. Because we had the elephant steps there, so I'm like, in the dark, don't run over here, don't run over here.
So does anybody else have any questions for Ellie? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. No questions? Okay, great.
Don't make eye contact.
I'm going to make a disclaimer. I may claim pregnancy brain at one point. My teachers know I do that on a frequent basis.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Regarding your SST 504 IEP plans, what kind of technology and support programs do you have, and are they accessible outside the RSP room?
Yes.
Do you still have the same thing that Dan had talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you referring, like the academic center, the homework club?
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. And so this year we have embedded an element specifically for our English language learners so that they would have access to the technology if they didn't have that at home. So we've made that space available for them with one designated day with somebody, Rose, one of our staff members who also speaks Arabic, because we have found a need to really serve our Arabic and our Portuguese speaking students coming in, and so that person is there to help with homework, but also to have that technology available to them to be working on Imagine Learning, Rosetta Stone, and Dreambox.
Okay. Can you went into a little description, but can you say again what the pairing of the ELL students and the SPED students for Family Day? Was it for Family Day, or it was?
Well, it's several things. One element that's new, and again, it was an attempt to really serve some of our primary students that are coming in with language needs, again, around Portuguese and Arabic speaking. And we noticed that we also had middle school students who were bilingual, and we also felt that those particular students would really benefit from some leadership opportunities. So we crafted electives for them where one day or each morning they're working in different primary classrooms where we've identified students through our data dive meeting, thinking this student would really benefit from working one-on-one with an older student. So we're hoping it's beneficial in both ways. One, that the primary students are receiving that language support, and secondly, that the older students are also gaining some leadership opportunities and helping their own language acquisition. So that's something we'll be doing for the second trimester, and we're utilizing that expanded intervention investment that we've done with a paraeducator to be their mentor. And so they're sort of mentoring the middle school students to coach the primary students.
I see. I was asking you about more questions.
I was like, I don't remember
I know,
this, but
Monica's
okay, I'm
gonna
just
be
gonna
so
go with it.
happy.
That was a curveball.
So you made a statement that student behavior and wellness will be considered in relation to changes in academic performance.
Yes,
Can
yeah.
you explain that?
Sure. So one thing I think we all could agree with is that when we see a student who may have some academic needs, there's so much more to it than just what we're seeing in the academic sense. So that's why when we have had our data dive meetings, we kind of bring everyone to the table, and then we just identify not only if there is a current emotional need, but perhaps there was one a few months back. Like I can think of one example where earlier on in the year we noticed a student had some emotional needs, but there wasn't necessarily an academic component. However, we recommended some counseling that student's been going, but we wanted to really keep a close metric on the academics to see if there was any cross correlation, and so that's been an important part of it. So when we sit down, we look at where are those student needs academically, and how is that pairing with the emotional supports that they need or might need to increase or tweak, and understand that they're sometimes related and sometimes not.
That's great. And just checking that all the events like parent literacy night, assemblies, all students on your campus are included and invited.
They
and
are,
the parents.
yeah. In fact, this year, one of our RSP teacher, Natalie, hosted a neat community circle for our middle school students because we noticed we are getting new middle school families, and we wanted to make sure they felt welcomed. So we reached out to some veteran families and also new families and invited them for a meeting. I will say it wasn't well attended, but I think that's data in itself. And so now we can go back to so now I think it's a great idea. Like I think it's a really neat measure to just do specific reach out to them and go build on that and be able to go from there.
Oh, that's great. And after-school homework support, who facilitates that?
So that is several people. It's Rose is one who's helping with the English language support. We also are pulling in some of our sort of targeted middle school students who we feel, similar to what Dan was mentioning, we're identifying some kids that we feel would really benefit from that added time, and we're offering them some incentives to be working towards. If they attend so many sessions, they earn some special things in school, maybe a Whopper or a burrito, who knows what that looks like, but some little carrot so that they can continue to go. And then Cindy, who's been working in our homework club for many years, is there as well. And she's there depending on what grade level, depends on what day is there.
Okay. And then you mentioned support and PD for teachers. I'm wondering if the paraeducators are also getting that?
Yeah, so it depends on the specific paraeducator's role. So the ones that are working closely with intervention are getting the LLI training and working on that specifically with our staff that already have that training. And then other paras who are helping in other capacities, they may have attended the para training day that was held on the November 1st. Here at the district, which did parallel nicely with what we did with our teachers on student engagement.
And lastly, would you say that restorative practices are embraced school-wide?
I'm super impressed with the way in which our teachers will just do whatever is needed to meet the needs of the students. And so I think they understand that there is a need to really address the emotional needs of our kids, and to, whether that's working in partnership with our counselors to come in and do some role playing and community circles. But overall, they are hungry to try whatever to help the kids. And so I would agree. And we're excited that in January, we're going to be having more training on that. And our middle school team has already, and we have other expert leads, Siva and Natalie, who have been helping to sort of train the other students as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any questions?
So I just have one comment, and it is for your school. So incredibly impressed with the things that you're doing, and I really like the deep dive, the data deep dive that you guys are doing, and it really dovetails nicely with what's come up as sort of educating the whole child, understanding all of their needs. My question for you is, you're engaging in this, are you documenting what you're doing along the way, just in case any of the other schools in the district might want to learn from your experience?
Yeah, actually, we have been creating a template for teachers. Actually, the teachers created the template, and we have passed that. They have shared that with each other's in terms of a document to be able to carry through. And it's a document that covers not just, say, one CAF score, but we're compiling all that data together, and then we take notes from each of those meetings. So this year was helpful in that we had this was our initial meeting with our teachers, but we could refer back and say, you know, that child you're talking about in 3rd grade, interesting, in 2nd grade they came up in the spring, here's some things we had done. And so now we're able to determine a pattern. And so if they've come up a few times, and we're still not seeing traction, that's good data too.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you, Julie.
All right, Jill.
Hello.
All right. Hello. I'll ask these with the knowledge that you are new this year.
Yes, thank you.
So I understand. So under your conclusion on the student performance data, I'm just wondering if you can describe suspension. Are you talking about suspension also in-school suspension, into another classroom?
Any at-home suspension or in-school suspension?
Both. Okay.
It's both.
Thank you. Would you also say that restorative practices are embraced school-wide?
I think we're getting there. I think we're not completely school-wide as of yet. I think that in a K-8 school, there are a couple of different things going on. In K-5, they're self-contained classes, and the teachers feel they have more time to do circles and things like that. And in the middle school environment where you're switching classes, class periods, it's a little trickier. And I know that because I am from a middle school background, but they're willing to try, and we're making gains in that area.
That's great. Student engagement, school spirit programs, you include your SDC
Yes, we do.
students, and their families are invited.
Yes.
Great. You already answered that. Parental involvement, there were no strategies listed under that goal for goal 4, so I was just curious what that was.
Will alerted me to that, and I don't know what happened, but anyway, it's in there now.
Okay.
And maybe you have a copy, I apologize. I think I only put a couple of different strategies, but they're sort of under the umbrella of family engagement, literacy nights.
Events.
So we have literacy night. We're talking about like a cyber safety type of night. We're talking about a math night. And again, we had that coaching session with the family engagement coach today, and we're trying to put some finishing details on some of our first events.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions? No. I just had one also about the restorative practices. Can you give me an example of how you would use that, let's say with a 7th grader?
Sure. It depends on what happened, but if they sort of hurt someone's feelings, did harm or something to a friend, I would speak with them separately. I would bring the friend in separately, asking both parties, kind of what happened. So I'm not going into it blind, but then if they're both willing, I would do a small restorative circle where they can each say, what they were thinking about at the time. There are some amazing restorative guided questions that you use with a full circle, and you can use them with a smaller group too. They're not accusatory. They're just, I'm trying to get information here and we're trying to figure this out. Usually it ends with, I'm sorry, and this is what I was thinking, or I did this because you did this to me last week, and, there are apologies, and there's understanding and growth, so they can reconcile.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments? No? Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello.
Monica? Now I'll ask you the questions.
Yes. Whatever Julie said.
No. Discussion short questions now. Fair's fair.
I knew that was mine. I had a
You got the
feeling.
sneak peek. So, regarding SSTs, 504s, IEPs, what type of technology support programs do you have, and are they accessible outside the RSP room?
Yes, definitely. Something I worked together with a couple teachers on a few years ago was to create a website, a Google site that has all the district programs and then all the special things the teachers want, because each teacher has like some special online programs they want their kids to use for their grade levels. So it's all in one place. Anybody can access it if they have a device. So that is accessed throughout the school day. It can be accessed at home too. So.
Awesome. Pairing of ELL students and SPED students for Family Day. Would you like to explain?
Sure. So for us, that's more, I don't usually get involved in that too much. It's more the teachers working with the Family Day coordinator, which is also one of our teachers. But it's along the lines of what Julie said, where we try to pair students that are going to work well together and can support each other with whatever special qualities they have as a student. So that's generally what we do. And it's, it usually works out great.
And SDC families?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Just a general question, are any of the strategies, activities that you listed in Goal 1 and Goal 2 new, or are they just continuing to build on the activity?
They're continuing to build, and we're always wanting to strengthen and refine what we do. So it's definitely a lot of the same things is probably what you're noticing, because we're finding that those things work well. And then wherever there are areas that we need to refine, we definitely do that too.
Okay. Your incentive programs focusing on positive behavior, sort of the same question I had as Ellie. Are there places for all students to shine, or is it just, if you have a lot of support, so you're doing well?
We actually do keep track of our winners for our Star Stallions, because we don't want to pick the same kid twice. So, that's not a terrible thing, but we try to pick new kids each time. So we do keep track of that.
Okay.
And we also try to kind of rig the system in that, we give out more of those Star Stallions to some of the kids that we hope will get chosen, so that hopefully their name gets pulled from the box.
Okay. And then your enrichment programs that you listed in your strategy 3, are these all free programs?
Absolutely not. Those are all of our specials, so our music, our art, that are PTO funds.
But I mean free to families.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
During the school day, those are all free to
But you
families.
had some listed that were after school.
The after-school program is run by our PTO. It's our V Academy program. Those are fee-based classes, and then occasionally we have parent volunteers that are willing to offer a free class. So those are fee. Separate from that, we also have clubs that are run by teachers, and those are free.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I was just wondering how the entire staff for restorative circles, the training went?
From my perspective and the feedback that I heard, it was very positive. We rarely get time like that together where we get to spend a whole day learning something together and practicing it together. And I think it was really special, and we actually got to learn a lot of new things about each other. So I think it brought us closer together. So I'm really looking forward to continuing our work with that and just continuing to talk about it at every staff meeting so that we don't lose sight of all of those wonderful things that we experienced.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments? No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just thank all of the principals? I was really impressed with everybody's SIPSA, and it seems like we're going in the right direction, and thank you.
So next steps would be, there are just a couple of things that Will's going to make sure gets done, and then these come back to you next meeting, which is December 11th for approval. Thank you, you guys did a great job.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving on. 11B, Pacifica School District Staffing Update, and I always have a hard time with this word, compensatory education. LCAP goal number 1, Maria.
That is why I put a card in, by the way, for this one.
Yeah. So,
It's been a while since
You can do either, but I think we have to be consistent, so if there's anybody else.
Is there anybody else who has a speaker?
Just me.
What? Stop making fun of me. I first want to say that I'm really glad you're talking about special ed tonight. And you're going to hear a lot from district employees, but I do want to give some perspective from someone who's in the classroom every day, or in my case, 2 classrooms. It's true that many of us are stretched thin, but that's not the whole story. I currently have 30 students on my caseload, which isn't supposed to get over 28 per the Department of Education, and that is a number that is only going to go up. In addition to addressing the needs of my 30 students with a varying degree of needs, I'm also trying to support our special day class that doesn't currently have a teacher. I know that is being worked on. This brings the students that I am supporting to on a daily basis 34. It's a lot. This isn't something that I feel is being addressed at a district level. Julie, the classroom CSEA staff, and myself are the only point of contact for the parents in our special day class. We continue to answer questions about a teacher and supports for those students. These parents will not complain because they know that the CSEA staff and myself and Julie are working extremely hard to meet the needs of their kids. I know that finding teachers for open positions is a priority, and I totally understand that, and I know you guys are working really hard on that. But addressing the needs of the teachers who are here should be a priority too. I know that I am supported without fail by my site, by those people at my site, to a wonderful, amazing degree. A district goal is to attract and retain highly qualified teachers, and I'm wondering how long I'm going to be retained if my needs aren't addressed, because if my needs aren't addressed, I can't address the needs of my kids. And if I can't address the needs of my kids, I'm not going to stay. Because at the end of the day, my kids are why I'm here. And if I can't address their needs, then it's not worth it for me to stay.
This is my first time having somebody come up and speak on an agendized item, so are we free to comment?
No.
No. Natalie, is it okay if I visit one of your classes?
You are welcome anytime.
Okay, when do you have your classes?
All day, every day.
I'll email you.
I get there at 6:45 every morning. You're welcome.
Oh, okay, so Maria, going on to the update on the staffing update and the comp ed.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to provide you and the community with an update. I think it's a really good idea, and I would be more than willing to update you as often as you would like in this forum. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about, both, you know that I oversee 3 departments, 2 of them are deeply affected by this. And one of the things we talk about a lot in both special ed and HR leadership is how do we put forward and put a front face to the efforts that we are making, because a lot of the things that we do can be invisible or behind the scenes or not prominent to the public. So I think this is a healthy thing for everyone involved, and I really welcome you to invite me to do it anytime. On the first page or the next page, Will, of the presentation. That's really tiny. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be so tiny.
Let me try to make it bigger.
Okay. So what I have here in front of you is kind of a mixed bag of the current vacant positions. I do want to make a correction at the Valley Mar Education Specialist position. There is a 1.5 FTE there. 0.5 is filled by one of our employees, so it's really only a 1.0 vacancy there. Currently covered by a contractor who apparently is doing a terrific job. So we were lucky to have found him. Sunset Ridge has a 1.0 vacancy, Cabrillo has a 1.25 vacancy, and IBL has 2.0 vacancies. Ocean Shore has a 1.0 vacancy. Natalie just very eloquently spoke about the situation there, and I had a note here that even if she hadn't said anything, I was going to call out that she's doing an amazing job stepping up there, and she doesn't have to do that. So we're deeply appreciative, and I'd love to talk to her offline about what we can do to better support her there. That is not a vacancy that is one that we can fill permanently, because it's due to a leave of absence, not due to a resignation. So it's a little bit different. I think we're on the verge of filling that one with a contractor. Natalie and Patty, I think, helped, and Julie helped me screen somebody that looks like she will be a good prospect. We're trying to negotiate. She's not available to come until the first of the year. We're trying to negotiate getting her sooner, so that's still a little bit in flux, but with all fingers and toes crossed, there might be a solution for that position at the moment, imminent. So I want to thank you guys for helping us with that process. I thought it would be helpful for you to know why these vacancies exist, other than the leave of absence. With my HR hat on, I do exit interviews when people leave, so I can share some of the reasons with you. One person left for another district and is making a higher salary. One person retired, a long-planned retirement, and one person left kind of unexpectedly midsummer to take a position as an administrative position after completing her administrative credential. So that's just some of the reasons why we're left with those vacancies. There are other vacancies in the department. I didn't bring those up. Choosing to focus just on the resource teacher vacancies for tonight, but we do have a number of other vacancies, and so the end result, of course, is that everybody is scrambling and spread thin, both inside the department and outside of the outside of the department, to try and help kind of fill some of the gaps. Next page one, what is the impact? This is just a small example of the impacts that's felt throughout the district. Students, of course, are our number one impacted population by this. We have approximately 100 students right now who are not receiving their specialized academic instruction. We, of course, the general education teachers, as you've heard tonight and other nights, are deeply feeling the stress of not having specialist colleagues available to help with address the student's special needs. Other special education teachers are feeling the pinch, as Natalie spoke to earlier. They're stretched thinner and thinner, trying to help either cover or support their general education colleagues, or listen to parents' concerns, and it's definitely taking a toll on our special education. Parents, it goes without saying, dozens and dozens of parents have stepped forward both publicly and privately to express how distressed they are with the situation, and of course they're frustrated. They don't understand how we've arrived at this point. And least of all, but also impacted, are least of all in terms of importance, are the administrators. At the district office, we're frantically trying to find solutions. At the sites, they're trying to hold their programs together and their staff together. So the impact of all of this is far-reaching, and it's not lost on any of us how it is being felt throughout the community. Groups that I didn't mention that also are absorbing some of the stress of the situation are school psychologists. I'm really concerned about that group. As you know, they have kind of a sort of a quasi-administrative role in terms of administering and overseeing special education programs. Often they are the designees for the principals and are at the IEP meetings. They're the face of the district at the site level when it comes to special education, and they're feeling a lot of the heat as well, and are also spread very thin trying to cover case management duties for teachers that are not, for uncovered caseloads. So I'm a little concerned about that group as well. It's a difficult to recruit and retain group, and so that's also on our mind. Okay. Next slide.
Maria, can we just go back?
Yes.
I just want to make a comment that we might be leaving out, the other students might be stressed in the class, the Gen Ed students who are being affected by the influx of kids with IEPs and RSPs, because sometimes there's behavioral issues or more attention needs to be drawn to them. So I think we should add that the students who are in the classes too, who don't have IEPs and RSP.
Well, I guess maybe it might, yes, I would agree, and it might even be easier to just say who's not impacted by this, right? It's the entire community is really feeling this. I would say it is on the forefront of everyone's mind. There's no doubt about that. And yes, you're right, Liver. Okay. I created a list, or we keep actually a running spreadsheet of all the things that we do on a regular basis to increase our recruitment efforts. I could go down and read the list. Some of these are, even though we are having a special focus on our special education teacher positions, we actually are having next to that, our next greatest shortage is in paraeducators. So we're also making a concerted effort to focus on recruitment strategies that will draw people into the classified positions that also impact the special education staff. So we use EdJoin, we use Indeed, we post in the public library of local cities, not just in Pacifica. We post in the Chamber of Commerce. We use community college websites to get out in front for potential classified staff, flyers out to families, flyer to all the school site. We're doing pop-up job fairs at the school sites in case there are parents who are interested in career change or picking up a new career. Or coming back into the workforce. I want to share with you a fun story that kind of was uplifting yesterday, and the principals did a really great job at the kindergarten parent information night, and because that activity falls under the student services department, I just did a brief introduction before they went into their presentations, and I at the last minute threw in a pitch for the HR department around people
moms who may be launching their kids into kindergarten or dads who might be considering a career in education to reach out to us so that we could do some career counseling and guidance and support around entering the field. And at the end of the night, 2 people approached me and said that they were interested and they've scheduled appointments to come in and talk to us. So I think sometimes just incidental reaching out like that in the community also helps, and I encourage anyone who's in the room tonight to keep that in mind, and as you're out and about, to be sure and do some outreach on behalf of the district. The more people that are out there recruiting, the more success we're going to have with that. Individual contacts by staff, there's been a lot of staff who've been very conscientious about sending us leads and referrals that we've been diligently following up on. We use the Pacifica Tribune. I frankly I wanted to be transparent with you. We've only used it one time. Historically, we haven't gotten very good results from that, and it's a very costly posting. So we thought we would use those funds to use our resources in more hopefully productive ways. We've reached out to all the university programs in the region. We have we've reached out in writing and also by telephone. Our ask is that we be allowed to come and speak with their student teachers in their classrooms. I was very surprised that we are getting some firm pushback on that. The instructors are not, they understand what kind of a crisis is going on. 10 years ago, I remember clearly going into special ed teacher classes and talking about programs and internships and so forth. Now we're getting a lot of pushback because if they let one district come, they know they're going to have a lot of other districts knocking on their doors. So they're kind of directing us to hold off until their recruitment fairs in the spring. But we're also giving a little bit of pushback to see if we can kind of find our way in the door, at least at some of the universities. So that's an ongoing effort there. We do a lot of regular recruiting at all the community colleges. Those are, again, we're trying to keep our paraeducator staff boosted as well because besides needing good paraeducators, sometimes paraeducators find that they fall in love with the field and they decide to become teachers. So it could be a good investment that way in future teachers. Some of us have connections with instructors at different programs, so we keep in regular contact with them. We do participate in all the local recruitment fairs, and then we've been using as many contractor agencies as we can get our hands on to paper screen and telephone screen potential contractors. So we've had hit and miss luck with contractor agencies. We've had some that have come through that have been very good. We've had some that have come through and very good and sign a contract and the day comes for them to appear and they haven't appeared. And so it's a very different world when you're working with a contract agency or a headhunter agency versus a direct hire. And so they have a lot of the power to kind of just pick and choose where they will go. And so we've had a few last-minute disappointments, which has been very unfortunate for the sites that were slated to receive those contractors. But we persist, nevertheless. We continue to maintain relationships with about 6 different contractor agencies, and we check with those program coordinators on a regular basis. Okay. Some of and other things that we've done, most recently we have raised the sub-rate for special education teachers only to $175 per diem, which is above what the regular rate is. We have used the Pacifica Mothers Club to distribute flyers. We've done an outreach with the Pacifica Collaborative. Janelle Jones, who's in the room, has been very kind to do Facebook postings for us. The district doesn't have any social media yet, but when we do, we will utilize that also for recruiting. And we've also used the Pacifica patch and the patch in local cities for posting advertising. Projects that are in the works, future planning. We are one of the participants, we plan to be one of the participants in the countywide teacher in residence cohort, which will be starting probably in the fall. It's a very exciting program. I could spend one entire presentation just telling you about that. In fact, I would like to, I will talk with Heather perhaps for planning to have a representative of that program come and share with you more details about that specific program at a future presentation. Again, site visits to university programs, we'll keep doing that. Develop social media accounts for the district where, is a future project. Looking to increase student and teacher intern placement in schools, which will, again, come from just, actually, to be honest with you, comes a lot from our own teachers who have connections with student teachers who might be interested in doing an intern year or taking a first step teaching job in the district. We've had several successes with that. Leads from Jonathan, leads from Patty, and other teachers in the district. To increase our advertising with the patch, they've invited us to continue to advertise with them, and other recruitment efforts as they come up. We go, Alexis and I both attend a monthly meeting of all the HR directors in the county, and we continue to network through that connection and listen to ideas and how other districts are dealing with this crisis as well. I've also, we had initially at the beginning of the year talked a little bit about overseas connections to recruit teachers from overseas. We kind of backburnered that idea because of the cost and the complications of credentialing teachers who are from other countries. We've recently revived that idea, and Alexis and I actually have scheduled an appointment to meet with the leadership at Jefferson Union High School District who have done that successfully to kind of pick their brains about what they did and how it went, what the credentialing roadblocks were that they bumped against, to kind of mentor us in considering doing that if that's what we need to do. Let's see. I think, and then of course through negotiations we are hoping to discuss what kinds of perks, bonuses, signing bonuses, other things we can do to enhance the interest of teachers in these difficult to fill positions. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah, when you're talking about the teacher in residence cohort, so this wouldn't start until next fall. Is that what you just said?
At the earliest.
At the earliest.
And that would be that's obviously a more kind of long-term. This is a systemic problem. So
right.
We have an immediate need and we also have a systemic need.
Right.
So we're trying to juggle both. We're trying to address both of those. Like, how do we get these positions filled soon?
Mm-hmm.
And, now, as soon as we can. And then what are we doing to lay some foundations so that we're not facing this year after year after
right.
year?
And then you mentioned on these future plans, develop social media account, but you just said above that the Facebook postings are being done by Janelle because we don't have someone to do it. So who would be doing?
Well, it's not, but they're not our account. They're a social media account for I think the Pacifica Mothers Club.
No, Pacifica School Days.
School Days.
Yeah.
So
we're
what kind of social media accounts are you talking about?
Well, if we had a Twitter account, if we had a Facebook account, the HR department, the district.
So an actual district account.
Okay, and so who would be developing that, and?
That's what we're working on.
Okay.
I don't think this is the first time we talked about a Twitter account. I think maybe 2 years ago we had talked about that, so I think it's important to just find, designate one person who can work on that.
Yeah.
It's just that everybody's kind of wearing 2 hats, 3 hats already.
I'm just curious, because I'm pretty new, over the past few years, have the amount of students needing special education, has it increased?
No.
No?
It seems in this district it's been pretty stable, I think. That's my impression. I've only been here for a year.
The same
but-
amount of special education teachers, because I'm just wondering, are we going to have an increasing need for more special education teachers, or are we stable?
It appears to me from looking at recent data that it's been fairly stable.
So we don't have to plan to increase special education needs or special education teachers in the future in the next 2 to 3 years?
You know, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict, but I think that if the trend continues, that it looks like it's fairly stable. The average, the statewide average is 11%. We're just slightly over that, but we're hovering around that. So, I mean, that's a good bellwether that if we stay at that pace.
I just don't want us to fulfill this immediate need and not be thinking about a possible future need. So I'd just like to see if there's some data that we can look at to make sure it's just listening to these presentations, and it's something I've never noticed before, but it feels like there's more students coming in who may need more special education teachers, so I don't want us to get in a crisis again in like 2 years.
So I think that's why we need to look at some systemic solutions.
Yeah, so we can get something going to think about the future as well as we address what's going on now, but down the line.
I think it's a supply problem. It's not, the demand is pretty steady. But the supply is short, and it's just getting squeezed all of the time as the cost of living and cost of housing is going up, and it all ties in with everything we're talking about, the general teacher shortage and negotiations that are going on, everything. So, and it's not just Pacifica, it's the whole state. In fact, it's the whole country.
And I don't know if anybody else remembers, but I remember when I first joined the board 5 years ago, Pacifica School District was like the district you wanted to go to if you had special IEP or special needs. And we were just always fortunate where there were teachers, you know, but then the price, you know, the cost of living and everything started to hit.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're not just focused on just today, but
the
future.
future.
This is something that we should be concerned about. Listening to the presentations, it's starting to hit me that maybe we should think a little bit further down the line.
The issue is that, like, even if we got all of these positions covered by January, that problem still exists in June because many of those people will be contractors. And so that would be a short-term contract. So we have to look at, like, what's the immediate need, what's a middle-term need to kind of go into next year, and then what's 3 to 5 years, right?
Does anybody else have comments?
Okay, so then the problem or the situation that this has brought about is that we have all these students, all our students in the district who should be receiving these services who are not receiving these services. So I have been in other positions in other districts where we've had little bits and pieces of this. I've never seen anything of this volume. But the legitimate, legally sound way to address the need when we are unable to fulfill our obligation for the IEP is to offer what is called compensatory services or compensatory education. I want to assure you that this is a very standard practice that we worked very closely with County Council in developing this plan to try and at least somewhat meet our obligation to our students. We all understand and agree and know that this is nowhere near what what it would be if we had an actual special ed teacher delivering services to our kids in the classroom as is written into their IEP. But our options were to do nothing or to try to do something. And so we decided that we would try to do something, at least, to try and help at what little we could while we work on trying to solve this problem. So that is known as a compensatory education. It is it is a solution that can be available when these services are not provided due to failure to implement the IEP because of negligence or because of a situation like what we're facing here, where we just don't have the service providers to provide the services for the student. There can be all different kinds of compensatory education. There is nothing in the community that is the same as getting special ed services in a school setting. By definition, those services are only available in a school setting provided by a special education teacher. The effort is to try and help support and guide families to get something as close as possible, or some kind of support as much as possible in the community. We calculated the amount of minutes that were for every single student. We there is no legal guideline about what that quantity or what that amount should be. We did some research in the local community and found some figures that gave us a span of between $55 and $75 would be somewhere in the range of an average cost of tutoring or some other types of programs in the community. Some are much more expensive than that. There's no doubt about that. But we did our best to calculate an equitable amount that would be so that our resources could be available to all the students who are owed compensatory funds. One of the things that we're doing now, we realize that can be a daunting task for parents to try and find these connections in the community to connect with services that might be available for their students while we work on finding teachers. And so we are bringing on board for a short-term basis kind of I don't know what I would call it, a support person to do some outreach with the families, connect with them, see what their progress has been in finding services and what we can do to support them and help them kind of be an extra set of hands or help them make phone calls or help them do research or whatever it is that we can do to help support them in locating services that they can utilize. Let's see. As I mentioned before, we were trying to be proactive and instead of reactive. We want to try, as much as possible to show our goodwill and our interest in trying to address the problem as best we can. And so that was the idea behind making the offer for compensatory services. We decided to do it a trimester at a time instead of for the entire year because we were hopeful that on a trimesterly basis, maybe next trimester will be better. Maybe we will have teachers, or at least some of those positions filled by next year. So we didn't want to just give up all hope and do a payoff for the entire year. We wanted to do it incrementally and keep hopefully optimistic that we won't have to do it again. But if we do have to do it again, we will.
I just have some comments on the comp ed. None of us want to be in this position. And so one of the things that I noted was, are we giving the parents right now, like a list of learning specialists so that they can, call? Because, special ed is supposed to be something that we're providing for them. And so if the parents are working all day, when are they gonna have the chance to call the learning specialist or set up the appointment? So do we have a list of resources or specialists that we're giving them right now?
So when we sent out the offer, we did send a list of, I bet, maybe a half a dozen or so, I think it was, connections in the immediate vicinity. But this is why I was saying, so I don't know, what success they've had with that or not. That's why we wanted to engage somebody to come and help us kind of connect with them, an outreach person, to connect with them and see what other support we could offer them in researching and trying to find some sort of a service or individual or company or agency that they could connect with. The other thing we're looking at, this is going to take a little bit more time, but we are doing some research with County Council and with SMCSIG to see what's the possibility of us bringing some of those folks into the district so that the kids might be able to have access to them during the school day instead of burdening the parents with having to take them somewhere after work or on the weekends or whatever. So that's going to take a little bit more time to figure out if it's doable because of the things we have to check out to make sure it's a safe thing to do for everybody involved. But it's definitely something that we're looking at as well.
The other thing is the $55 an hour, that's for equity purposes, we're just giving everybody 55. So, I had a special ed child and we've had to hire a learning specialist and it was $90 an hour. And so how are we going to help the families who can't find somebody for $55 an hour?
Well, so how it works is that it's a whole pot of money. It's not, so it's not that they're limited to finding somebody that's only at that rate. That is, they can draw from that pot of money until that fund is exhausted. And then, certainly we're about to come up to the next semester. There is a whole, if we aren't able to find teachers, there's a whole nother amount that would be available to them. And, but the bottom line is if there are situations where they cannot find somebody, I would encourage them, and this is again why we want an outreach person, to let us know, and we can look at things on a case-by-case basis and make sure that we are, remedying whatever we can. But I think that the amounts that have gone out are hopefully a good starting point. And then we're definitely open to problem solving any other situations that might come up. And I think the superintendent would agree with that.
I just don't want $55 an hour to be like, okay, well now we've given this to you and so now you're on your own. So I want to make sure that that the parents are getting the support and that the child's getting that support because we're not educating them like we should be. And like I said, we don't want to be in this position, but we need to do something. So, if we can provide them a list of these specialists or, like Kumon, that's...
Yes, Kumon was on our list.
Yeah, but they're not really learning specialists either, that specialize, in the disabilities. And so I think we need to really look at finding a list, ourselves and making sure that we're supporting them, until we get over this hump. Because, we have to educate them. And, any way that we can do that. And I also think that we need to have an update on, this situation every board meeting until we've gotten over the hump. And I am hopeful that we'll get over it. But I just think we need to just give more support.
You said that you do the exit interviews, but are you also part of the hiring process? Are you seeing a lack of interest in these positions during your recruitment, or are you getting a lot of applications?
So it's cyclical. So in the spring, we have gotten a nice, I think a nice pool, not a great pool, but a nice, decent sized pool of applicants. Where it comes down to for us is, or what I've seen is that it sometimes will come down to that last final offer. And sometimes we lose to higher paying districts.
So you're saying that just strictly compensation is why we're losing potential teachers?
I wouldn't say it's strictly compensation, but I know that it gets different. We've had situations where it comes down to, we've made an offer and they accept somewhere else. I mean, that does happen.
Are the majority of the applicant pool local, or are they coming from outside the area?
No, they're pretty local.
Pretty local. Are we recruiting anywhere outside of this area at all?
In terms of?
Not just the colleges here, but like outside, maybe in us, a little bit. You said you were thinking about recruiting outside the country. Are we recruiting from like, I don't know, middle America, someplace that's like different from California, a different state, to bring somebody in?
We haven't been doing that, no, but
What? I mean, I know it's expensive to live here, but a new teacher, new graduate, that may be willing to move with a couple of friends to California, are we making some effort to kind of look in a different place? Because I don't know how long you've been looking in the same places, but trying to get past this, so we have to be a little bit more creative in how we recruit. Maybe a smaller town, somebody that might want to move to Pacifica. It's a pretty nice place, but any.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. We do need to have a further outreach, and I think that's why it's a really good idea that we're looking at doing some online, some social media, because that reaches, a lot farther than I can physically go, or any one of us can physically go or should go, right? In terms of the return, the cost versus the return of somebody going to a lot of small towns versus how can we do more outreach that is, online or through other media, so that we can hit those, kind of spots all over the country. To be honest though, this is, California and the Bay Area have a reputation all over the nation for being one of the most expensive places in the country to live. So it is hard to get people, or sometimes some of the contractors even that we've engaged, they get all excited and then they start looking at the cost of rent to move here. Because the contractors tend to come from outside of the area. They're called travelers, and they like traveling. They like going around to different communities and experiencing, a year here, 2 years there, and then they start looking for apartments.
So I'm just wondering, as another avenue, might we try to get a hold of recent retirees that might want to come back on a very short-term basis?
Yes, we are working on that. As a matter of fact, I made a call to a former colleague of mine from the county who retired recently, just before the meeting started. Somebody gave me her name and said she's looking to work part-time.
Yeah,
and
for a short-term
Yeah.
solution, that seems like probably the highest
Absolutely.
probability, and like you said, it's a couple phone calls, and then, not only people that if you can hook into sort of network, right? And,
Right.
even, maybe there's some districts around here who actually don't have a huge shortage for special ed teachers and have some people that recently retired, and you can sort of tap them and say, hey, do you have any recent retirees that might want to come and help us out?
So I have a couple of questions. This outreach person you keep talking about, would this be a new hire?
No.
So what would, who
Just
do you?
an employee that, you know, we can pay to do that on a timesheet. An internal person.
Okay, so no additional cost to this?
Well,
or-
of course, we'll pay her for her time. We have to pay
Okay,
her.
so we need to see that, right? We're gonna be seeing that before they're hired.
Well, you would just repurpose somebody's
Yeah.
time, right? Redirect
So,
some
but
effort.
no additional, that's what I
No,
just
no,
said, but
you
you
just
just,
redirect some effort.
Or pay a substitute on a time, that's another.
Yeah.
okay. And then you were talking about the pot of money that this compensatory education is coming out of. What is the pot of money? Is it just out of our special ed fund?
Yeah. Yes.
And then the letters that have been sent out and may be sent out again, are they being sent out in the home language?
No, that's a good question.
So they haven't been in the
They've
past?
all been in English.
Okay, so that will be rectified if we have to do this again?
Yes.
Okay. And then I have to say, you know, I think one place that we really failed with this letter, and if we do this again, we really need to think about having some kind of parent forum. Because a lot of the information that you're giving out tonight, if I was a special ed parent and I just got the letter, I wouldn't have understood all of this other information about the legality and to have parents have a chance to ask the questions from the letter, I think is a gap that, you know, if you just got that letter in the mail, it would be distressing.
We did do forums at each.
Oh, you did,
yes,
at the
we
school
did.
sites?
We did it at Cabrillo, at Sunset Ridge, and
IBL.
And IBL, before the letters went out, in anticipation of the letters going out.
So I think it would be good to do it with the letter, though, because I think if you're doing beforehand, you know, it's just like parent-teacher conferences. You might have a discussion, and then you go home and sort of think
Right.
about it,
Well,
so.
we had, at each of those meetings, we did talk about that we would do a follow-up in December. So,
Okay, and the letter went out in September, October?
I think it went out about a month or so ago.
Okay.
I'm on October 18th.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that from some of the parents that have come and spoken to this issue, it's just like, again, going to an IEP meeting. You hear all this information and then it sort of filters in, so I think that piece of it might be really helpful.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, wellness committee update.
No, we have moving forward on this, no? Are we
One
completely
more
done?
slide.
I think we talked about that.
The to-do list. Yeah.
So then I do have a couple of additional, with all the things that you're doing with focusing on the vacancies, did we ever do an outreach to our staff to have some kind of meeting with them, the teachers that are jumping in, all this to sort of strategize and see, because somebody had come, one of our teachers had come and talked about ideas that they were having, and
Yeah, it's
you know, that's-
interesting because I had met with that very teacher just the week before.
Mhm.
So I did start going, I went to a couple of sites, I met with staff, I went to Cabrillo, I went to IBL, I made myself available for all their lunch periods, I think 2 teachers came. And then I kind of paused after that because we started focusing on getting the letters out. So what I definitely could go to Sunset Ridge.
or even an email, you know, to just sort of have an email blast, just to say if you have some ideas of things we can do to help support them as well as the students, especially the ones that are jumping in and sort of covering
Right.
bases.
And we also had put together a training for Dan, we had a meeting with Dan to see what we could do to support his staff. And so we have a training put together that some of our specialists are gonna go. and present at their staff meetings around how to support kids in the classroom. So, yeah, but definitely open to those ideas too.
Okay, and then in the last month, have we made any hires?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Have we made any hires with the paras, the ones who assist or help?
I think we have. I'd have to check. I mean, that's a little bit more of an ongoing flow. It's a little bit easier to find paras.
Anybody else have any questions? Are we ready to move forward, Maria? So we have 11C, the Wellness Committee update, and this is LCAP goals 1, 2, and 3. Maria?
Give me a second here to pull up my other notes. Okay, I just would like to give you a brief report on the Wellness Committee. This is my first year overseeing that group. As you know, they meet twice a year by mandate, and so we had the first of those 2 meetings. It was pretty much a let's reboot meeting since we didn't have the opportunity to meet last year. We met on the 9th, we met for an hour. I listed there the people in my memo, the people who attended. They included Lori Miller, Jen Gray, Christina Ireson, Danelle Scobie, and Darcy Fields. So we had most of the members who are on the committee attend. We did a review. First, we did a review of the board policy that drives the committees to kind of refresh all of our memories about why the committee exists and what our task is. And then we did a item by item review of the wellness plan for the district. And each of those yielded kind of a to-do list. For example, what we realized in going through the physical activities and other learning experiences is that we really need that feedback from the principals to see what's going on at each of those sites to get their kind of their overall take on how that's going. So we plan to do an oral survey of principals in one of our upcoming leadership meetings. We wanted to also check and see how the use of foods for celebrations and that sort of thing, how that's going in terms of implementing healthy alternatives. We also realized that we haven't had parent representation on the committee, so we're going to make an active effort to recruit at least a few parents to join us, as well as hopefully board members. One of the things the team is considering, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is that there is no element of the plan to address social and emotional wellness. So we are looking at proposing an additional requirement for kind of the emotional well-being of students and making sure that the wellness plan incorporates that as well. So what we'll be doing some of this work in the interim between now and the spring meeting, and then in the spring I would plan to come back and give you kind of the results of what some of those activities are and what some recommendations are moving forward for next year. Any questions?
Yes. Could you, I have a request, when your group gets together, can you look at the fundraising piece of it for food? Because I've raised this many times, and I think in our wellness plan it says something about, when PTOs do fundraisers that include food, there's going to be some kind of documentation about the healthiness or unhealthiness of it. And I've seen flyers go out through our school newsletters that, selling this or that and ice cream, whatever. And I understand the PTOs need to make money, and I'm not wanting to squash that, but again, it kind of gets back to, are we doing what we say we're doing? So if we're not going to do that, then it shouldn't be in our plan. So if when you guys meet, if you could just look at that component and really see if it really meshes with what we're doing at our school sites.
Okay.
Either way, either our school site should be, if that's what we really want, then that's what we should be doing. And if we don't really want to do that, then it should be taken out.
You mean that particular item or any of it? Any
Well,
of
I just think whatever we're doing should
Whatever
follow
we're
our
doing.
policies.
Yeah.
Or our guidelines. So, and again, I am not against the PTOs making money. I get they do a lot of supports for our school, but let's just make sure we're actually doing what our guidelines and our policies say that we're doing.
I agree with you, Kathy. I'm on the wellness committee, but I had something very important come up. Just because there's kids, who have diabetes, nut allergies, and I've never seen any cupcakes or cakes at the school that I work at. And I think it's just a no across, the, like for birthdays or class parties, it's just a no. And so I know that,
You're gonna have an uproar. Just saying.
But you make a good point.
Yeah.
If we're gonna allow it, let's just change
just
the
allow it.
policy.
Yeah.
Where we're following it.
Right.
Right. That's a good point.
So that's another reason you really should have parent representation, right? Because they can give you what that
Agreed.
looks like.
Which one of you was on the committee in the past?
Not me.
No?
No, not in the past.
Oh, I might have been.
Okay.
As a parent, though. I don't think I
Oh.
have been as a board member.
Oh.
I think I was as a parent
So
like
do you
20 years
remember in the
ago.
past there were parents on the committee?
I was on it as a parent,
Okay.
like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to 11D. Approval of Form J-13A, request for allowance of emergency conditions, goal operations. Josie?
Okay, thank you. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve what's called the Form J13A. And this would allow us to claim attendance for the day when we had the power outage that Monday on October 28th. Because of the power outage, it was deemed that the police and fire asked us to close school because of the road conditions and the traffic lights and being able to direct traffic. So if this is approved tonight, then we would go ahead and submit it to the county superintendent of schools for approval, who will then submit it to the CBE for approval, and we would be able to claim that one day of attendance for our students.
All right, so this is an action item. Is there any questions about it? No? Okay, do I have a motion to approve Form J13A?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Now we are moving on to 11E, appointment of Measure O Independent Oversight Committee member. Goal governance. Josie?
Okay, thank you. This is another action item. With the passage of Measure O, we have formed an oversight committee, a bond oversight committee, who will meet once the expenditures have occurred and review the expenditures of the bond to check to see if we're within the bond language. And so we do have some members that were appointed. We've been working on this since the campaign, since the passage of Measure O in June. We did bring to the board some members back in, I believe it was August or September of last year. Linda Broccini from Valleymar, who was just here, and Dylan Paul from Ocean Shore are the current members on the committee. Since then, we have done some more advertising and some more outreach. We did reach out to the senior services, but have not yet received any interest. And we did do another advertisement in the Pacifica Tribune. I think what I'll do is do another reach out see if we can ask Janelle to do some reach out on her Facebook page and also on the principal's newsletters. But tonight we are asking for you to approve one more member. His name is Dennis Schillingberg. You did receive his application. and he is a community member. He would be listed as a community member on the committee, a business organization. He has a business in Pacifica. So we're asking you to approve this additional appointment tonight.
Do we have any questions? No? And do we have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Second. And all those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. 11F, certification of first interim report for 2019-20 goal. Operations, Josie.
Okay, thank you. And Will is putting a PowerPoint up for me on the screen. Yeah, I think I can. So tonight we're going to present to you the first interim report for the 2019-20 school year. This report is as of October 31st. It contains the actual expenditures as of October 31st and then projections through the end of the year. The first interim contains the detailed budget and multi-year projections. This is a summary PowerPoint. The actual report is well over 100 pages and is also attached to the board agenda item tonight. So what we want to do is kind of review where the state budget ended up, because the last time we met and talked about budget was in June. We had several meetings in May and June of last year to discuss this year's budget, and we based our budget on the May revision. The state budget came out after we adopted our budget, and these are the final numbers in the state budget. The LCFF, what they call LCFF funds COLA, was 3.26%. Their formula is now fully funded, so there are no additional revenues. We're operating in what you call a COLA environment. There was no one-time discretionary funds in USIM's budget. Prior governors had given one-time discretionary funds, and we've kind of seen the end of that. There are no more one-time discretionary funds. Special education and child nutrition are also receiving the 3.26% COLA, which as I go through the presentation, you'll continue to hear that 3.26% does not cover the increased costs for any school district operating in California, and certainly not in special education or child nutrition. 3.26 is not sufficient funding. Here's just a quick comparison. In previous years, you would see a difference between what the governor proposes in January, what he proposes in May, and then what the final state budget is. This year was kind of unusual because there were no differences in his proposals from January through June. And I am going a little bit slightly fast on some of these slides, so please stop me if you have questions, and we can talk. So this is just a chart to show you historically with the LCFF funding, historically how school districts have been funded over several years. And when we look at the different colors, you'll see high, medium, and low UPP, which is our unduplicated pupil count. So really the students of designated for certain categories, free and reduced, English learners, and foster youth. Pacifica is a low-funded LCFF school district, and you can see in the chart the what color is that? That's the, I can't see it. It's the blue. You can see the blue, and you can see that we've received lower funding than other districts throughout the years, and this year it's pretty flat funded compared to the other areas. So for 1920, the funding factors, when you apply a 3.26% COLA to what the state is paying you per student, you can see in kindergarten through third grade, the grade spans, what the dollar amount was before the COLA. It comes out to a range of $243 to just under $300 per student of an increase for this year. And so the numbers on the very right-hand side are what we're actually receiving per student. So in building the budget, our revenue, this is what the big revenue assumptions was that our enrollment is pretty steady. It's 3,110 students. When you talk about ADA, that's attendance. That's when the students actually attended school. And our attendance, what we're projecting right now, is 2,984. Again, the COLA is 3.26%. We received lottery funds from the state, which isn't a lot of money, but it's $153 for unrestricted, in the unrestricted side of the budget, which really goes to pay for teacher salaries. And then $54 is restricted, and that is restricted to instructional materials. And that is really not enough to fund any types of textbook adoptions or, any of the, to really fully fund what we need for instructional materials, but that is currently what we're receiving. Mandated block grant is a grant that the state created several years ago. It's $32 per student, and it really doesn't cover all the state mandates that school districts are held accountable for. It used to be that you would conduct all the mandates and apply for funding. Well, the state could no longer fund the mandate, so they came up with this flat dollar amount, and it is not sufficient to cover everything that we're doing. Yes?
Josie, I'm a little confused because you calculate money on a block grant, but we certainly get supplemental grant on those unduplicated counts of
Yes.
students as well.
Yes, and that's
Is that
not,
coming up later?
Yes, that's not listed in this. The block grant is when you had to do like PE testing or scoliosis testing. There was a whole bunch of things that we have to do.
I understand that. I mean, if we go back a
You wanna go
slide,
back?
right? If we go back to the LCFF, that funding factors, that's just our base.
Yes, this is the base. It does
so-
not include the unduplicated amounts.
Yeah, so we get, and then I was also just a little confused because you said we were low. We're really under 10% unduplicated per pupil counts? Because I could have sworn we were up around 20-something
We're
percent.
in the 20% range.
Yeah, I
And
thought we
so-
were closer to like 23,
Yeah.
24% just free and reduced price lunch, which would, or socioeconomically disadvantaged, and of course, the unduplicated is an or. You have to be
Yeah.
either socioeconomically disadvantaged or EL or foster. So we're actually somewhere in between the blue and the orange
We are
bars.
a little bit in between, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then the next slide just doesn't have our supplemental included. So I'm not gonna say these numbers are a lot higher, but they are higher
A
than.
little bit higher,
than these.
yes, when you
Thank
put
you.
them in the calculator.
Okay, thanks.
So here is just a summary pie chart of the revenues that the school district receives, and this is our combined general fund. The blue shows that we are, a lot of our funding, 85% of our funding is coming from the state. And that's in the form of the LCFF funds and our property taxes and the lottery funds. We get very little federal funding in our district, and then other state revenues is only 6%. And local revenues, that includes our parcel tax. So you can see the bulk of our funding really is we're reliant on the state funding. And then expenditure assumptions, these are really just the big expenditure assumptions, and you'll see in some of the charts a little bit more detail. But our staffing increased 2 FTE, and that was really just in our staffing formula for teaching. There were other changes in staffing, but we didn't list them all. The budget does include our staffing as of October 31st. So CalSTRS, I think one of the speakers kind of alluded earlier to the state with the CalSTRS. We contribute 17.1% of teacher salaries into their retirement. And that contribution didn't change from the January proposal to May. There is, the state is funding more into the state's portion of CalSTRS, and there are projections, and I'll show you in the multi-year. Some of those numbers will go down a little bit in the out years. CalPERS, we contribute almost 20%. If you're a classified, like a paraeducator or a custodian, we contribute almost 20% to their retirement. So in addition to salary. And then employee health benefit costs, this year Kaiser was put pretty flat. There wasn't really any type of very minor change in the CalPERS rates. And then we have what's called employee step and call-in increases. Every year, whether you're a teacher or a classified employee, there is a salary increase that's built into the salary schedule. They move on the salary schedule for a year of service. And for teachers, it's in the range of 1 to 2.5%. And classified salary schedules are usually about 2.5%. So there is a small compensation increase to our employees, in addition to the increases in retirement benefits and health employment benefits. So again, these are the numbers as of October 31st, the staff that we currently have in place at this time. Here's a summary of our expenditures, so you can see the breakdown of the big categories of expenditures. And again, the biggest expenditure we have is our employees. 83% of our budget is into teacher salaries, classified salaries, and you can see the gray, 31% is employee benefits. And so those are all the funds that we're paying into their retirement funds, and we're also paying into health benefits and dental benefits, in addition to what you would call fixed payroll costs. So I don't know if you had a question?
No, I just think it's important to understand the CalPERS and CalSTRS, we have no control over that.
Right.
I mean, that's just a done deal. We can't say
Yes.
we want to pay less, and it's not negotiable.
No, that's a state pension account that we are obligated to pay as a school district. The other obligation that we have that's different than other school districts is we do pay into retirement benefits too. When an employee leaves Pacifica School District after so many years of service, we pay for their health benefits for up to 10 years. And so that's also part of that gray area. There's a lot of costs, compensation costs to employees that, in addition to salary, that you don't readily see. And then other expenses are pretty small, books and supplies and other operating expenses. So most of the budget really is employee compensation. Now this might be a little bit hard for you to see, but what I have here, rather than trying to look at the state software, is a snapshot of the first column is what we adopted in June, and then the second, the first three columns is the June budget and then the first interim. And so then what you can see in the last part of the section is the variance, the difference between what we thought we had as a budget in June and what our budget is today. And I'll go into some more details on this. So I'm trying to look at the changes in the categories on the next chart, and I'll actually just kind of go through them. You'll see the numbers, the letters here, A. So the first one is, it's called general purpose revenue, but those are the revenues coming from the state. And you have your unrestricted and your restricted. And so the change there in A is when the county gave us projections for special education in May, it was slightly lower. So now that number is slightly higher, so you see an increase of about almost 70,000. And then B is federal income. You really don't know what your federal revenues are until like November, December, and so it's hard to plan and spend. So oftentimes we carry some of those revenues over, and so that's an increase because some of the revenues were carried over into this school year. And then in C, we did have a slight reduction in what's the special education mental health funding category. And then D is revenues. For local revenues, we kind of budget them as we receive. And then all of the E's you'll see are the employee costs. You'll see salaries and benefits, classified, certificated salaries, classified salaries, and health benefits. And you can see there's a lot of changes here in our employee salaries. And that's a lot of the discussion we've been having tonight is there's a large decrease in teacher salaries because we were not able to hire all of the special education teachers. And then when you go down, you'll see a large increase here under what's called other services and operations. Those are, that's the category where we contract out for services. And so you'll see a $1 million increase over there. It's including contracting out for services and special education settlements. And all of the compensatory education costs are included there. So that's kind of how you read this. Let me see if there was anything else to point out. We did see a decrease in special day classes, county special day classes, that's H. And then the big number near the bottom, our special education contribution went up by $463,000. And that was mainly due to special education settlements. And the board has seen some of those settlements on the agenda in the last several months as we put them on under contracts and consultants. So that's the big difference between what we thought our budget was in June and where we are today as of October. Do people have questions on this page or how to read it or any of the details on this? We'll go a little bit. So this is really just the explanations of the changes, the next slide, and I kind of read them off to you.
The bottom line is that we're eating in $488,000.
The biggest change is the increase in the contribution, and funding from the state and federal government for special education is just insufficient to begin with, but we did have a big change there. So this next slide, and I apologize, there's a lot of numbers, also hard to read. One of the things we need to look at as we look at our first interim is our current year, and then we need to project 2 years out. And so the first three columns are the same numbers you saw on the last page, the first interim budget, and then the 2021 budget and the 21-22 budget. we're in these, and I have assumptions for these as well. Included in the multi-year, of course, is our employee compensation. We're including the step and column for employees, and we're including the health benefit increases. We're also including special education increases in this multi-year. The one thing I really want to point out to you is that we are deficit spending, and you can see that here in the green. If you look at the green, okay. The green bar towards the bottom is the net increase or decrease. And if you look at the unrestricted column, it's deficit spending. And then if you go a few lines up and you'll see transfer in bold red. That transfer in is, the board has, and I'll go through all the funds, but we do have Fund 17, a special reserve fund. So combine our general fund and special reserve. We've been borrowing from the special reserve fund to maintain our 3%. Because in order for us to submit this report to the county, we have to have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainty. And at the very bottom of the chart, you can see what the current district reserve is, including Fund 17 going across. In the past, the board has, and we have continued to discuss that we do not have sufficient reserves, so I listed the goal in green at the bottom of what our goal would be to have a reserve. So the thing to point out here is the red. We borrowed $200,000 currently in 1920 from Fund 17. We're projecting to borrow another $400,000 in the next year, and then another $100,000, which is pretty much all of Fund 17. It'll be like $50,000 left in Fund 17 as this budget stands. The other thing that's not evident in this budget is in order to make the 3% reserve, in addition to borrowing from Fund 17, we have built-in budget reductions in the second year of $600,000. Now, they're not clearly identified here because that's a lot of work we have yet to do, is to identify those budget reductions and to start making those reductions. But it is something to be aware of, is that we wouldn't be at 3% if we didn't have the borrowings and the budget reductions built into this multi-year budget. So, and that we do also have increases in special education, which is a few lines down from the red. You can see that the contribution goes up every year.
Josie, can I interrupt for a minute?
Of course.
You know, we're almost at 10:30. Don't we need to make a motion to extend the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So sorry for the policy. That
Right. So till 11 o'clock, and we can stop earlier, right?
Yep.
So I'll make the motion, yes? Or is there discussion? I'm sorry, Laverne, I'm jumping on.
We have a motion to extend the meeting until 11 o'clock.
I motion to extend the meeting until 11 o'clock.
I will second.
And all those in favor?
Thank you.
If it goes much further than
that,
that,
can we
break? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
What's that, Elizabeth?
So we'll need a 5-minute break in there somewhere.
Should we just finish this and then we'll take the bathroom break?
So I don't know if you have questions on the multi-year. It's a lot of detail. So these were the assumptions I talked about, is increases in special education and increases for employee compensation, because we do pay them for step and column increases, and we do pay for health and welfare increases. And those are the budgeted figures there. And then the ongoing structural deficits. So here's just, you've seen this chart before. School Services puts this together, and it is 2 years old, but that's the most recent data they have. It is recommended that a school district have up to 17% in reserves, because you should be able to fund 2 months worth of payroll. And Pacifica School District currently is at 3%, but you can see for elementary school districts, from the data they put together, the average was 20%. This is in California school districts. So it is something that we do need to work on, is increasing our reserves.
Can I just make a comment on that too?
Of course.
We've been functioning like that for as long as I've been on the board. Like,
Yes.
I think at one point we had 6%, but then we gave raises and it went down to 3.5, somewhere in there. So, we've never seen the 14% or 16%,
No.
20%.
No, it's been 6%, like you said, 8% maybe at the highest, but we've never been able to achieve that.
3% is entirely too close. I mean, it
Yeah.
is the legal minimum.
Right.
But we're coming toward, the
Very
projections
close.
here in 2 years say that we're not gonna have any more money in Fund 17. So we will no longer be able to deficit fund at that point, right?
No.
Right?
And the COLAs are not, we're operating in a COLA environment, and the projections are not sufficient to cover our everyday increases currently. So we have to either strategize on getting more income, more revenues in, or reallocating the current expenditures that we have in a way that makes it work. And then, again, these are all the reasons why we need more reserves. Any one of these items, and we would be below our 3% reserve. And also for cash flow purposes. We need to maintain reserves so we can actually pay payroll on a monthly basis.
Can you remind us, Josie, what are the steps if we go dip below our reserves? We get a bad audit finding? Is that what
No,
happens?
it's not going to be an audit finding. It's actually going to be, so you have a positive certification is you can meet your current fiscal year and 2 years out. Qualified, which is where I believe we are currently heading towards, is where you can meet the current year, but possibly not the second or third year. And then negative is where you are actually negative in the current year. And so when you're qualified, you're going to, we already have county oversight, but when you're qualified, you're going to have much more county oversight. And when you go negative, then you're going to have the state receiver, the state's going to come, FCMAT, the Federal Crisis Management team will come, and they will actually start running the district for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a really summarized version of the different categories.
Thank you.
So these are all the other funds, very summarized. The general fund is the first one, so I won't go over that again. The child nutrition fund is one I do want to talk about because you know that it's not a self-sufficient fund. The board has been contributing $56,000. It's something to look at because our increases in employee compensation, increases in food costs, and not very much increase in revenue. We might have to look at increasing lunch prices. The state and federal are not going to increase their contributions. Another issue is the no shaming law. The no shaming law really focused on your free and reduced students, but now with the new legislature, it's opened it up to paying students. So we've changed our meal policy where we don't if a student who's on paid status comes without a lunch, we are going to feed them, and they're going to accumulate a negative balance. We cannot try to collect these funds from the student. We can try to collect these funds from the parent, but we really have no recourse at the end of the year, and that will be a general fund contribution. So that's something to pay attention to. Deferred maintenance, the state used to fund $240,000 into deferred maintenance, and the district used to match. That all went away, and we were contributing $240,000 until the last round of budget cuts, and it's really at a bare minimum now. That's to cover things the bond can't fund, and so right now we don't have sufficient funding in that fund either. Special Reserve Fund 17 is your reserve fund that we're borrowing from. And then retirement benefits, that's Fund 20. Those are the employee retirement benefits. When someone leaves Pacifica School District with retirement benefits, they get 10 years of health benefits and 10 years of dental. And it's about $700,000 to $800,000 a year that we're paying for that. The actuary would say you should have about $10 million in that fund, but we don't have the means to fund that, so we're just doing a pay-as-you-go method. The building fund, as you know, is the bond. And so you can see at the bottom we have just under $18 million in that fund. Capital Facilities Fund 25 is your developer fee account, and we are going to start strategizing now that we have the bond funding and some possible state funding on how we can spend those funds. And then Fund 40 is the sale of site funds, and that's for the workforce staff housing project that we have a slide on. So second interim status. Right now, we're self-certifying as positive. We're going to need to have some conversations with the county when we submit this report because we need to demonstrate the status of our budget reductions and how we're going to reprioritize our spending in order to maintain a positive certification status. If we don't make adequate progress towards reprioritizing our spending and showing budget reductions, we'll likely be filing a qualified report in January. Second interim is January 31st, which we bring to the board in March. And if we don't show some progress, we should self-certify as qualified because we will not be able to demonstrate $600,000 of budget reduction. So we have a lot of work to do now before the holidays and through the new year to to kind of reallocate the budget in a way that's going to be able to meet our 3% reserve and also compensate employees as we move forward. So that's kind of what we're looking at now. Key budget dates, the auditors should be giving us a draft audit report very soon. It's due to the state on December 15th. The governor's new budget will come out in January, and we'll see how those COLA numbers, if they've changed. It's still not going to be sufficient even if they did have an increase in COLA. We're going to look at enrollment and staffing in February, and then second interim in March, and then as Will knows, we're going to be going through the whole LCAP process in June, LCAP budget process. And then just very quickly, we wanted to report out to you, we're going to be having a parcel tax committee meeting soon, and here's where our parcel tax projections are today. We get just under $1.28 million a year for parcel tax. A bulk of it goes to teachers' positions, teachers' salaries, teacher support, counseling. We have library media technicians in all of our schools, and a small amount goes to gardens, and we fund outdoor education for all of our students in Pacifica School District. We do have an ending fund balance in the parcel tax, so that's one-time money that we can look at using for any type of one-time use, or if this budget doesn't is a little bit deficit, it can kind of cover that deficit as well. And then our workforce housing project, we're going to have another discussion with the board in January where we are, but we're still currently in negotiations with Bridge Housing. None of the other information has changed at this point. We're still in conversations, and we'll come back to you in January with a full report. And then the bond, we talked about this. We have our facilities master plan just about ready to print. So we'll have a nice plan moving forward. Here's what we've done so far with our bond funding. We saw the need for devices in the classrooms, and so the board approved that $342,000 purchase a couple months ago. We've done a lot of technology assessments and recognized the need for network cabling. We do not have full access when you go to the school sites. There's teachers who do not have access to internet in their classrooms, and that's something that we need to fix. And as you know, the classroom technologies are all at end of life, so we're going to be looking at our technology plan within the bond, within the facilities master plan. Deferred maintenance, we've spent, when you saw the facilities master plan, there was tiers, and deferred maintenance was one of the first tiers. And so right now we've focused on the Lindemar Educational Center. Remember, the fire marshal had indicated there were some improvements that needed to be made there, and we've signed contracts and started working on those improvements. We have piloted flexible furniture at Sunset Ridge, and I meant to get pictures from Ellie, and I just ran out of time because it's something that you really need to see. So in one of the next presentations, we'll bring you some pictures of the flexible furniture. And then good news is we did get King Consulting to assist us with the OPSC and state matching funds. And so we couldn't qualify for this before because we didn't have any funds to match. But now we could really strategize on what we can match with as far as like maybe the Cabrillo Auditorium or the Ocean Shore classrooms. And we do have these funds now available to match with our facilities master plan. So
and the modernization is more than a one-to-one match? That's what it looks like?
Yeah, those are the figures they calculated for us.
So that's great. So that's great. So
Yeah.
we put up 1.7 and they put up 2.6.
Yeah, so
That's
now we
great.
just have to match that to our projects.
Yeah.
So that's really good news.
And how often can you apply for these? Is it?
I don't know how often, but you do know there's a line. Like, you get your funding application in, and people who had theirs in, like,
of course.
You know, so I don't know how often.
It's first come, first served.
Yeah. But we want to get ours in. We want to get our projects.
Let's build.
As soon as possible.
Let's modernize
Yeah.
quickly so we can fly it.
Yeah, so that's good news. So the next steps is we really need to finalize this master plan, work on prioritization. I was looking at the architectural selection process earlier today. We want to do a request for qualifications of architects and get some groups of architects to choose from for the facilities master plan. And then we need to work on staffing for construction projects. This is a whole other thing now, where how are we going to staff? Are we going to try to staff it on a case-by-case basis as far as like a construction manager on each project, or do we have somebody part-time in-house? And staffing would be paid for with bond funds, just like the other items that we listed as far as King Consulting, those were all able to be paid for with bond funds. And that's it. I know I went somewhat fast, but it's a lot of information. If you look at the first interim and the certification that we're asking the board to sign, it does show the states. Jesse's pointed out before, those first 2 pages of the certification show the fiscal indicators and what areas to look at. And one of them is, of course, our uncapped health benefits. There's a list of things there that when you see a yes, that's one of the things to pay attention to. So any questions?
You said that we had to look at and possibly make some cuts, and you said through the holidays, so November and December?
Well, we're going to start working on that now as cabinet. We're looking at the budget in detail and kind of trying to see what we can do, but we need to start taking actions, and so we need to start working on that now through the spring. We're not going to work on the holiday, but we'll be.
And no one is losing their job over the holidays.
No. And we just have to reprioritize where the spending is.
So that's what we bring to you in February.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions or comments? Sorry, I'm kind of educating out here. So do I have a motion to approve the positive certification of the 2019-2020 first interim financial report for the period of July 1st? Sorry.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
So we have 23 minutes left. We have everything, we have 1 item and then 3 board policies. Shall we take a quick break?
Like a 5-minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll put up the hat slide.
No, you need to take your medication.
I said, you have to get up and get her. Good question. Well, one of the things.
I'm supportive of it because I see it, they do it in the library. That's where.
Are you serious? Oh my God. No, thank you. I can't drink coffee now.
Triple espressos all the way around.
I thought you said coffee. I thought you said coffee.
So it'll get us through the last 20 minutes, right?
I didn't even have dinner. I thought you said coffee.
Didn't you? There's pizza and
There's
salad
pizza.
here.
Go to the staff
Go
room.
grab some.
I had a giant meal at 3 o'clock and I
Yeah.
Go grab some food.
Do you want some?
You know where the kitchen is.
I do.
The Warriors got hammered tonight. 142 to 94.
They're just conserving their energy for next year.
Is this on? Is that on? No. That's gonna be on the public record. Warriors got it. 30.
Anybody have a cough drop by any chance?
I have a think so.
That'll help. Thanks.
You know what? If you
She has a fever.
Did you make a recommendation?
Oh, thank you so much. I got a referral.
Disruptive.
Oh, you do your own? Sorry. Oh. I want to get on camera. Thank you for the deep.
You assuming we'll get to the end?
Aren't you freezing? I am now. Oh my gosh.
Is there a window open or something?
This window was open for a while when there were so many people there and I closed it though.
I mean, like the last 20 minutes or so, it just feels like
I
there's a
know.
cold breeze coming through.
Oh, well, the fan's on. Let's turn that
Oh,
off.
well, then.
That'll be one thing we can.
That could be part of the breeze. I don't even feel it.
There's chocolate over there.
I'm already asleep.
But generally I get hot,
Oh, I know.
even if it's cold.
Yeah. That's been the biggest change, even the kids can't get used to it, because it was always hot, always hot, always hot. And since I was in the hospital, I'm always cold. I'm like shutting everything and turning the heater up, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Got like a pile of blankets on my side of the bed.
I know.
I'm
Getting my mother for Christmas, I'm getting her one of those good weird goody blanket things. Because every time she comes over, that's all she ever says. Boom, 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 boom. Put this on. I'm getting her that like fleece lined.
When I was a kid, my dad was always cold.
Yeah.
And I used to think something was wrong. Like, why are you always cold? And the older I get,
Now you know.
I'm always cold.
I know.
I've inherited with everyone. Yeah.
That's karma.
Yeah. There's something was wrong with me. Like, Dad, I was like,
Immediately when I got out of the hospital, it was definitely like.
Really good participants.
What's that?
Accesses. We only
Oh,
have
yeah,
till
they were
11
good,
o'clock.
actually. I mean, focused on things that move the dial.
quickly. I have to go so early.
If we don't, then it just has to get tabled, because I don't think we can extend it more than once. Yes, it is. Very
Okay, shall we?
Sure. Unless you want to wait for Marie.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, moving along, reconvening. We're moving on to board bylaws, 12A.
So there's one.
Resolution.
Resolution, board compensation for missed meeting.
You don't want us to miss this.
Recommended that the boards approve the resolution for board compensation for missed meetings. Are there any questions?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
Okay, perfect. We'll move right through the board policies. This one was from August, the one on dress and grooming, and the board policies seemed to be fine, but there was a question in the administrative regulations around hat usage. We polled the staff, we heard from 87 folks, and overwhelmingly 74.5 of them either felt strongly or strongly agreed around that hats should not be allowed indoors. And just a couple of things to note for that is that clearly it excludes religious or cultural head covering, so it has nothing to do with that, and doesn't say that in there, but exceptions would be for kids receiving medical treatments or other kinds of accommodations, maybe based on a particular need. Just a couple of trends is that overwhelmingly, the folks that are considered mental health experts in our district disagreed with that, is that they strongly disagreed with the hats, or the excluding of hats indoors.
And Sunset Ridge was a little bit more on the, I don't, that's not important to me to be able to, having a hard time getting my words out because it's past 10:30. So the Sunset Ridge folks did not hold on to hats should be excluded, although there were some teachers that did that. The reasons people gave for not wearing hats indoors, one is just a sign of respect, kind of traditional, this is what we do indoors. And then the second piece was around hiding AirPods or ear pods. So we would recommend that we pass it with our CSBA revisions, with the understanding that it's really about, it's not our interest to enforce rules, consistency applies, but it would be the principal's discretion around exceptions to that.
Yep. And then, any questions or comments? Yep.
This is for first reading, so it comes back.
And then 12B?
Okay, I have the next set, and I'm not even going to read them for the purpose of brevity, but it basically is around changes in laws, with the exception around the meeting conduct, and in the meeting conduct, it clarifies some First Amendment rights, and the other piece is, as Kathy noted, is that if the meeting goes beyond 10:30, that's not always, meetings that happen well into the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock is not really that available to the public, and so it would be a good practice for us to do exactly what Kathy did, is vote to extend, and then that would be a one-time extension.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Oh, I just had one clarification on the meeting conduct, BB 9323. Under public participation, it's talking about, so as not to inhibit public participation, persons attending board meetings shall not be requested to sign in. And it says we currently invite members of the public to sign in. So are you saying we are going to not have people do that anymore?
That would be if, yes.
Okay. Okay.
With your, I mean, there's plus and minuses to both of them. One is that you know who's at the meeting. That way you can tie that back to the speakers. But if in fact it would keep people at home, so we wouldn't even have the voluntary sign in back there.
Okay, thank you.
That's our recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then 12C, October maintenance, 3,000, 7,000 series. Chelsea?
Okay, there's really two policies here. Is campus security, and that one has to do with security surveillance cameras. And we would currently only have surveillance at 2 sites. Ortega was due to a lot of vandalism several years ago, and at that time we made the decision to put some surveillance in. It doesn't cover the whole campus. And then at IBL, there's some surveillance in the school office. Our director of facilities maintenance and operations has ordered appropriate signage, because we currently didn't have the appropriate signage. So that's really what this policy is about, signage and how you can and can't use surveillance equipment. The other policy was on architectural and engineering services, and it just clarifies the responsibilities of the district when selecting architectural and engineering services.
All right, any questions, discussion? 13, future agenda items.
Okay, our next meeting is on December 11th, and that is our reorganization vote. We have an election right here. And we will revisit these board policies for approval. And at that time, we will talk about the board meeting calendar for next year. We also talk, that's when we talk about the real committee, so committee and liaison appointments. We sort of halfway did that at the beginning of this year because we had a new member, but we will do that on December 11th.
Can I just?
Yes, ma'am.
When are we going to discuss possibly changing when we adopt the SIPSs? Or do you talk about that in cabinet first, or?
We could certainly do that. I think one of the conversations that I would like to have is, can't even remember that guy's name, Will, and.
That guy over there.
So I actually would like to have a conversation with Will and Jesse and I to know
Okay.
about the best way to do it. Jesse and I kind of had a conversation the other day.
Okay.
There really is no ideal time.
Right.
Ours is weird, though. It is weird.
Right, it doesn't make any sense if we don't have the information that we need to make decisions.
Will's always bringing that
Right,
up.
okay.
So
that's
so
to
let's
be-
have a conversation and then we will bring that back to you in our LCAP adoption
Okay.
process. Does that sound good? We'll
Sure.
also give you an update in December around dates and important landmarks for our LCAP development.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Just on the special ed, like if
Okay.
we've made any progress in hiring,
Okay,
like
so
that one
update.
prospective
Okay.
person. And then the teacher in residence cohort, when would we hear about that?
I think that the county, I saw an email from the county recently. So I think we can give you an update on that in January. I don't think there's going to be, but we are interested. It may cost us about $20,000 a year. But I also think that one of the conversations we can bring back to you in January is how can we start to think out of the box, like perhaps a Midwestern recruitment fairs, or how do we start to pay either a stipend for rent or a signing bonus? All of those would be negotiable, but we have to start to think beyond our sandbox because our sandbox is empty. So that will be January, February. And then fortunately or unfortunately, January, February, and March is going to be talking about budget and budget reductions.
Okay, anybody else? Future agenda items? Nope. Okay, meeting adjourned at 10:53.
I think